shoots. Oh, and another deflection up over the glass and out of play. But now there's going to be more time. That horn's going to sound. I think there should be another second on the clock. And this one will end 4-3 the final. The Vegas Golden Knights hold on to hand the Blues their first loss, but man, oh man, on a Friday night was it an exciting game here tonight in Las Vegas. A heck of a battle by the Blues, and Vegas squeaks away with a 4-3 win.
That's what it sounded like right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN on Friday night with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. It's one of those rare Mondays where all of us are in the studio together.
Yeah, they don't happen very often.
It won't happen next Monday, I'll tell you that much.
No, literally, both of you are gone.
You're out too?
Yeah, no.
No, I'm out.
He's out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm probably going
Except I'm actually off. I won't work at all.
As
Well,
the
I'll be in the morning show.
As the disturbed one said, I'll probably get down with a sickness that day.
Well played. Does T-Bone know that reference?
That was a reference? I thought he just made that up on the fly. Wow.
Some may say T-Bone
I was
is
giving you a lot
disturbed
of
by that
credit.
reference.
Not anymore, though.
I thought maybe you had heard that song at like a sporting event of
At
some
like
kind.
any sporting event you go to.
Clearly not the case. All right, so the Blues. I'm having a tough time breaking this team down, Alex.
Is this like last year where you're like, this team's boring?
No. And that's why. Like, I actually think they're interesting to watch. I find them to be really compelling right now because they've got a young defenseman in Philip Broberg, who I think might be a top 5 player on the team right now.
Remember my comp with Mike on Friday, Nick Lidstrom? I was so right.
Yeah, I mean, that feels a little low right now. I wouldn't press the button.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either. Bobby Orr.
Binner, solid. I kind of like what you have with your forwards. I'm not sure the combination has come together the way that I expect it to down the road, but you've got young guys. You got a guy like Matthew Joseph, who I really enjoy watching, a fourth line that's fun to throw out there. You got a penalty kill that's working, a power play that is significantly better than it was a year ago already. So, like, you watch the team night to night, and they're 2-1. That's what we wanted from them on this road trip. It's a solid team overall. And yet there's elements that are missing. They're not great at 5-on-5. The high danger chances against are really starting to add up. You're starting to see, especially top lines, that one on Friday night. Woo, boy. That's a good one that you're going to see over there with Barbie and Eichel and Stone.
They can only stay healthy for about 40 games. So
as we are now through the first road trip of the season, Alex, what is your assessment of the St. Louis Blues as they are 2-1-0 on the season?
I look at them as a team that has a lot of pieces. It's just the pieces aren't fitting together right now as a puzzle. And will they as the season goes on? I hope so. It sure gives you some optimism. Like 5-on-5, there are some alarming signs in terms of the scoring chances that you're giving up, the fact that for these first 3 games, every single night, Bannister is juggling line combinations because it's not meshing well. But you're finding ways to still contribute offensively. Yes, they're come from behind wins, but you're still finding ways to pull that out. Even that Vegas one, you got that offense late. You just have to find a way to solve that one period where things fall apart for you. Defensively, not only are you playing a really good, stingy defensive game as just the 6th defenseman, but you're also contributing offensively. You've got 2 guys right now that are point-per-game players in the defensive side, and Broberg and Justin Falk, which, I mean, that's a steal for this team. And you mentioned it, what I think the biggest takeaway should be for a lot of people. The reason Craig Berube, not the sole reason, one of the reasons Craig Berube was fired and why that team fell out of grace so early on, your special teams was abysmal. You were giving up power play goals, and you couldn't score to save your life. Now your power play is clicking on all cylinders, and it is dangerous with the passing right now, maybe so much so that they're not shooting the puck. And penalty kill-wise, you've been very stingy with it. So overall, it's like looking at a box of a puzzle that you're like, how the hell am I going to put this together? And over time, you figure it out. I think right now you're still looking at a box trying to find the corner pieces.
Yeah, I think the positives for them, for me, are, look, the special teams, the power play especially, looks just better and different. And that's the kind of thing that if it's not abysmal like it was last year, where I think through the first 3 games it didn't even score a power play goal, you can look at it and say, hey, even if you are struggling 5-on-5 offensively, that's what's going to buy you time. That's what's going to keep you in games and potentially help you pull away in some games. And I would say this, outside of that game against Vegas where they kind of had their struggles defensively, we've seen for 2 games where they've been able to put up a period or 2 in that road trip where they were able to just shut things down defensively. Great with shot suppression, especially in that game against the Seattle Kraken. You can kind of see the formula right now for the Blues to win. They have that shutdown defense for a period. The power play gets them on the board. Now, where I'm concerned is the lack of 5-on-5 offense, because it is a little bit of a reminder of what it was last year. And that's what I thought we saw in that Sharks game until they came back and won that game. That's why I tweeted out the Spider-Man meme while they were looking at each other. The 5-on-5 offense is concerning, but maybe that is just a matter of, hey, they haven't had a piece that was missing in their top 6 in Brandon Saad, who skated with the team earlier today at practice.
I think that power play that you were talking about, Alex, is such a big piece of this.
Totally.
Last year, you finished 24th in power play percentage. You were at 18% on the season. If this team just gets to, what do you think, 12th this year? Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, if you're the upper half of the National Hockey League, you're in a good spot.
So last year, you had 250 opportunities overall on the season. If you finish, let's say, 12th overall, which is not like this huge, crazy jump, just like 12th overall, you would have finished last season with, let's take a look here, 58 goals on the power play. You had 45, so you had an extra 13 goals over the course of the season. Many of those coming early on, because I think for the second half of the year, they were probably right around top 12 to 15.
I had kept track of the power play in those first 2 months. You had about 12 instances where your power play didn't score with the opportunity to take the lead or to tie the hockey game, and you did not score on it.
And that's what it seems to be doing right now, is whether it's a penalty kill that they kill, and then I really like what Bannister's doing with this. We'll talk about it a little bit more later on today, but he's getting the PK out there. He's not utilizing Robert Thomas or the best penalty killer in franchise history and Pavel Buchnevich.
Franchise history, National
PK.
Hockey League history.
Well, let's calm down a little bit over there, Alex.
Sorry. Got too excited.
Because
Only went 2-1.
he's deploying them after the kills.
Yeah.
They get done with the kill, and immediately you see Buch, Thomas, Kyrou coming off of the boards, because he knows, okay, they're going to have to take their power play guys off the ice now. We're going to have a mismatch here. Let's use what should have been a disadvantage and now turn it into an advantage for us offensively. It's a really smart idea that I think more teams should probably consider.
It's the same thing he did last year with Parayko and Leddy following the other team's power play.
Sure.
We were complaining about putting Parayko on the power play, and he said, no, I like those guys coming out when the other team's when their other team's penalty kill is done so that you can kill off what they tried to do.
It's a really interesting utilization of your top players. So that's intriguing. So that's the penalty kill side of it. And then you add in, an extra 13 to 15 goals this year on the power play, potentially, if this sustains. That's how this team improves. That's it. If you're simply the same as you were last year at 5-on-5, which is not good, by the way. They were not a good 5-on-5 team last year. Say mediocre there, and you're slightly above average on both penalty kill and power play, your special teams could help this team get to where you wanted them to go prior to the season. You believed that they would go, Alex, prior to the season, and what me and T-Bone were both very skeptical of them becoming.
Yeah, you didn't have weapons on the power play last year that you could utilize. It was a very one-dimensional power play, and again, I looked at the first couple of months of the season, and you had no opportunity to create a spark. Every chance that a spark was trying to ignite, the Blues would just kill it off immediately because their power play was so bad. And now you look at that Seattle Kraken game. You score the first power play goal, and then your offense goes on a little bit of a run. The San Jose Sharks game, you don't score on the power play in that one, but you kill a big power play off in the second period, and then you create some offense to open up the third. And then that Vegas Golden Knights game, you get one again. It's starting to look like something that when you have a close game, you're hoping that the other team takes a penalty, because now you're like, okay, this is our opportunity. And if we're thinking that as fans, imagine what the Blues players are thinking on the ice. Now, what I do think happened to them and why you have to avoid chasing hockey games is that Vegas game where you had the opportunity to tie it up in the third period on that power play. You're overthinking it. You're pushing because they kept passing, and then once they came out of the zone the first time, there was no opportunity to get back into the zone because you're overthinking it. So as long as they're playing it smooth to where they win a faceoff, you're in a close game, and you have an opportunity to break that lead, this power play can do some real damage, and it's Justin Falk's shot. It's Jake Neighbors' net front presence. It's Pavel Buchnevich in the slot where he scored that goal against the Vegas Golden Knights. It's a dangerous weapon for this team now that I wasn't able to say last season.
So for today, they did have morning skate. They did make some moves, by the way. The St. Louis Blues have announced that Brandon Saad is back on the ice. He's back with the team as of today, off of the paternity list, and they have placed as the corresponding move Alexander Texier onto IR. It's not the LTIR, so this is not like a long-term thing necessarily, but he is going to miss a little bit of time. This can be retroactive to when he was removed from the lineup last week. Brandon Saad back in the lineup today. Bolduc is going to be around for a little bit while Texier works his way back from his injury. The lines today at practice.
Guess the lines. T-Bone, hit the open.
Brandon Saad is on the top line with Robert Thomas and Jake Neighbors. Zach Bolduc remains in the top 6 with Buchnevich as the center and Jordan Kyrou as his other winger. And then the bottom 6 is mostly unchanged, although Shin now bumps down back again to his third line role as the center with Joseph and Holloway. I really like that line if they can construct it that way. And then the fourth line remains the same. Torpo, Foxa, Walker, everybody's happy with the WTF line. And then the 6 defensemen, there's only one change. P.O. Joseph out, Kessel back in. Otherwise, your top 4, Leddy, Parayko, Broberg, Falk remain in place. Alex, what do you think of the way that they've constructed these now that you do have Brandon Saad back into the lineup?
It's the best looking lineup that they've had so far this season because what they lacked in those first 3 games was consistency from top to bottom. Once you started juggling up the lines, you basically broke up your second and third lines to where you didn't expect them to create offense because you were throwing it all on that top line with Robert Thomas. Now, as long as they can stick with this, you've got consistent offensive opportunities from 3 lines. Saad, Thomas, and Neighbors actually last year played, there was a small amount of time together, but Money Puck had them expected goals percentage at 52% in about 30 minutes that they played together. So it's a line that's worked in the past, and Saad creates some offense with Thomas and Neighbors. I really like the fact that they're keeping Bolduc in there with Buchnevich and Kyrou. It felt like they were starting to gain some momentum versus Vegas, and I'm with you. The best line out of all of these to me is Holloway, Joseph, and Shen.
Yep.
Shen does not look good on the wing in the top line. I know that they tried that, but I don't like it. I think Shen's perfectly suited at the center position. In my opinion, it should be the second line, but if you want to keep him at the third line, but that line's got it all. You got Holloway who can shoot, Joseph who can be a puck hound, and Shen who's your centerman. So now it feels like you've got 4 lines that you can throw out there, and they can create offense rather than omitting one so that you could get more from another.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. YouTube chat off and running today. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL is where you can go to find it. We are hearing this from the 573. For bleep's sake, guys, Saad is not a top 2-line guy. Another one from the 314. Is Saad really a top 6 forward? It doesn't seem like he drives offense for the Blues. He's a top 6 forward for this team.
Yeah.
Also scored 26 goals last year.
I think Brandon Saad is the kind of guy who on a Stanley Cup contender probably plays on the third line, is placed into that role, and you just immediately know 20 to 25 goals every year. You just write it in pen. You know exactly what he's going to be for you. For the Blues, he's going to be asked to be more than that. He's going to be asked to be a top 6 winger for this team. Right now, with the way that they're utilizing guys, I do think that top line is probably the place where I also would have placed him right now. Just because it makes everything else fit into place. Because Bolduc is not the top line winger that I want. If they're going to continue utilizing Buchnevich on that second line as a center, you can't have him up there. I like what they're doing with Jordan Kyrou. I've said for a while, I think he's a second line winger. I don't think that's a shot against him. He's a guy that can take advantage of the mismatches. It puts less on his plate defensively. I think it's a smart use of him as a player. So what does that mean? Well, you've got Jake Neighbors up there, and now by process of elimination, I've got Brandon Saad up there. It's a spot that they need to upgrade. I think they probably know that internally as well. And over time, I think they will upgrade. But right now, your best option as that top line winger, in my opinion, is what they're doing. I think this is my favorite lineup that they've put out there so far this year. And it's not just based upon them being healthy. It's also the way that they're using these players. I think they need to have Shin as a second line center. I think at that point, you'll have Bolduc come out, Shin up to the second line, centering Buch and Kyrou. Foxa probably bumps up, and this probably happens only when Sonny returns to the lineup, and Sonny becomes that fourth line center. And now you've got Thomas, Shin, Foxa, Sonny down the middle. that's a lineup that can really do some damage.
Yeah.
But it requires you to be fully healthy, and they're not quite there yet.
Right. In an ideal world, Booch would be on the wing and sod spot with Thomas, and you'd move Shen to that, and then you could put... I'd prefer Holloway on that second line because I think he showcases the offense, which in this situation, you're pushing Sod down to the third line. But for right now, you just need somebody who's got familiarity with Robert Thomas. You've tried Shen, and it didn't work on the wing. You tried Holloway, hasn't worked on the wing. Yep. You're not going to use Kyrou and Buchnevich, so Sod is the next best thing in terms of familiarity, and you never know. You could get hot for a couple of games, and he creates more offense.
Coming up in just a little bit, we'll get into some NFL quick here, just coming off of what was a boring weekend in the NFL, but there was one headliner and a couple of teams that have some really bad vibes right now. We'll tell you about that coming up in NFL Quick Hitters, but next, college football was the story of the weekend. This was the perfect year to begin the expansion of the college football playoff, even if T-Bone hates it. We'll tell you why next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care. If you're in the market for a new HVAC system or maybe just trying to maintain your old one, now is the time to call Classic Air Care. I just had them come out actually earlier today as a part of our maintenance agreement because, you know, it's starting to get colder overnight. You're flipping that heat on, and they need to come out and check it for you, fine-tune it, and clean it up if you've got an older unit so that it's going to be able to take you through the cold winter weather. So they come out, they're able to check it, clean it, make sure it's good to go. But here's the best part. They found that a breaker had blown out on our unit, and so they were out there with my wife. They explained what happened. They fixed it up, and now we're good to go for the winter season. Be a part of this maintenance agreement because twice a year they come out, they check it for you, and then in between, if you are a part of the maintenance agreement, you get first priority if some issue arises with your HVAC system or your heater. So give them a call today, or you could schedule that maintenance agreement online. Just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. It's Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
3rd and 20. Howard, a lot of time coming off. Howard's going to run for it. Time runs out, and that'll do it.
Oh, my goodness.
Welcome to the Big Ten, Oregon. They storm the field at Autzen, and the Ducks win this bout 32-31.
The massive games on the schedule so far this year have more than lived up to the hype. Bama versus Georgia was absolutely incredible. This one between Oregon and Ohio State lived up to all of the hype. It reminded me so much of Oregon versus Washington midway through last season, where both of those teams were like, okay, are they real contenders? And I left that game thinking, okay, yeah, those are, in my opinion at the time, the two best teams in the country. Then Michigan came through and said, hold my beer. But at the time, it felt like Washington, Oregon, at a minimum, those are two of the three best teams in the country. I felt that way leaving this game on Saturday. Ohio State and Oregon are both really freaking good, man. And you can throw Texas into the mix with them and put them in any order you want to. Those are your top three teams in the country as of today. Alex, beyond that, I got nothing. You could throw any of like 20 other teams at me and say, hey, this is the fourth best team in the country. And I'd be like, yeah, I could see it. If you wanted to tell me today, and they would never rank them this way because of their record, but if you wanted to tell me today that Texas A&M is the fourth best team in the country, I could listen to your argument. I'm not telling you you're right, but I could listen to the argument. You want to tell me Georgia is actually the fourth best team in the country? I'll listen to it. You want to tell me that LSU, fourth best team in the country? Okay, sure. Clemson? Yeah, absolutely. Notre Dame. Yeah, they lost to Northern Illinois. A weird day. Sure, throw them in there as the fourth best team in the country. I have no clue beyond the top three right now. That's all I've got. I think this is the perfect year to start this new college football playoff expansion, man. Because in previous seasons, previous iterations of college football, like last year, for example, I felt like you had a pretty clear top 4 to 5, and I thought all of those teams were like a full tier better than everybody else in the sport. I don't know that there's a single truly great team this year, including Texas, including Oregon, including Ohio State. I think they're all really good, but I think they all would have got their butts whipped by the best teams last year. How are you feeling about what we're seeing right now, big picture-wise, in college football?
I think it's exciting. I think this is, like you said, the perfect opportunity to do this expanded postseason because there are going to be so many storylines and uncertainty going into that first round of playoff action because you have three teams that are probably a tier above the rest, but it is a very close tier. Just look around at these numbers. There is... How many one-score games against these top 10 ranked opponents have we seen? Like, you've got Alabama who won by 2 points. You have Penn State that won by 3 in overtime. You've got Tennessee that won by less than or a touchdown against Florida. And they got lucky. Yeah, and then LSU and Ole Miss, you're talking about another overtime game. Even the Ohio State and Oregon game. Two teams that we are confident are 2 of the top 3 in college football. It was a 1-point game with a drive down the field that had the opportunity to take the lead.
T-Bone's Illini and needed overtime to be able to win that one as well.
They're not a part of the college football playoffs after what I just saw.
Dude, sure. Why not?
Yeah,
Mizzou is still a part of the college football playoff conversation. Illinois is still a part of the college football playoff conversation. K-State, despite a very close call over the weekend, we'll get to it, still very much a part of the college football playoff conversation. If you are currently ranked in the top 25, you are currently part of the college football playoff conversation.
Congrats,
because there's going to be a boatload of movement between now and the end of the season. We are only halfway through, guys. We just started conference play. And these teams that are going on the road, every win on the road feels like a miracle right now. It doesn't matter if you're going up against a top 25 program or if you're going up against somebody that is unranked. We don't have to go that far back. Remember Georgia, Kentucky? The near heartbreaker there for Georgia. LSU, South Carolina. Remember that one? How close that was before South Carolina lost their quarterback in the second half of that game. There was a close one for Oklahoma versus Auburn. Tennessee versus Arkansas. Lose that one. Like, it's every week. Yep. Every week these teams are going on the road and they're finding ways to lose.
Well, and here's
Mizzou versus A&M.
That
one was a little less close, but
maybe. And they got back out there on the saddle and they beat UMass.
There you go.
Right back there. But here's the other thing: you've got the you've got the kind of tie-in every team has to where you look at them and say, oh, man, they look good. Yeah, but they didn't just lose. They got blown out by X team. You mentioned Clemson. Looked great. But then you go back and watch when they played Georgia earlier this season. It's like, yeah, they got spanked around a little bit. There is so much tie-in to every team that you look at and you say, hey, they look really good right now. Yeah, but they couldn't beat this team. It's wide open.
Dude, Notre Dame. Notre Dame is the perfect example of this. They are currently ranked 12th in the college football playoff. 12th. If you look at what they have done this year, they beat Texas A&M, who I think is pretty good. I think Texas A&M is a good team. Yeah. I don't think they're great, but I think they're a pretty good team. The next week, they lost to Northern Illinois. Can I give you Northern Illinois' resume since then?
Haven't they lost like 2 or 3?
They lost to Buffalo.
They
lost against
Buffalo.
They lost against a terrible NC State team. NC State is awful this year.
Yeah.
UMass, they only beat by 14 points, guys.
Oh, okay, well, there.
And you just saw UMass this weekend. That is a horrific football team.
So is Buffalo.
They played them at home, Northern Illinois did, and won 34-20. Notre Dame lost to them at home, 16-14.
At least UMass
and now
got
Notre
points.
Dame is very much in play for the college football playoff. Like, dude, everybody is going to have some kind of a weird loss on their resume this year, other than maybe the top 3 teams in the country. Penn State is going to probably lose a game at some point this year. And earlier this year, they had a close call against Bowling Green.
And Connor Bazelak.
Oh,
Oregon had a really close call earlier this season against Idaho.
Mm-hmm. I bet on that game.
I don't know what to make of any of this, but it makes for great theater. I'm captivated from 11 a.m. until 11 p.m. on my couch every Saturday throughout this college football season because it's just haymaker after haymaker after haymaker with these games. The expansion of the playoff is a part of that. I think the expansion of the conferences, while weird that I'm watching like USC versus Penn State on a random conference game or Ohio State versus Oregon, it's awesome. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. The SEC expanding, and now we get Georgia versus Texas, and I get to see regularly games like Alabama versus Georgia, which I wouldn't have seen on a regular basis in previous iterations of the sport because of the way that they scheduled in the SEC. Dude, this is great. This is awesome for fans.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it so far, and I think the thing that's interesting about these teams is, you know, like you mentioned that you don't think any of them would have competed with last year's best teams like Michigan, Washington. Those teams didn't really have holes. Even the top 3 teams that we just discussed, Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State, they have a hole. Everybody from like 4 through 25 have major issues. Like the Alabama defense, awful. They can't get off of the field. You look at Illinois, for example. They have no pass rush whatsoever. Like anybody that's 4 through 25 have such a massive issue on their roster somewhere.
I don't know if Missouri can complete a forward pass.
Exactly.
Or backward pass.
And that's the kind of issue that can like eliminate Mizzou. What I just mentioned with Alabama could be the reason they're not in the college football playoff. The only 3 teams that I think feel safe as of today, even though they do have some issues, is Texas, Ohio State, Oregon. Outside of that, it is a wide open field to work. Like, I'm not kidding when I say this. Army, Navy are potentially an option running team could be in the freaking college football playoff this year.
Army is one of 2 teams that is undefeated both straight up and against the spread this year. They have not lost a game against the spread so far on the season. They are now ranked 23rd in the college football playoff. Army, Michigan, Navy. That's your last 3 in the college football playoff.
And they run the same offense almost.
Michigan is going to be taking on the Illini, a game that T-Bone will be in attendance for this weekend.
Illinois brought their defense.
This is a huge game for Illinois, dude. A huge game. What did we learn about them against Purdue, T-Bone? Because I texted you midway through that game, and maybe it was on me.
Yeah, seriously.
They were up like 27-3 at the time.
That's the BKO.
And they had to go to overtime and stop a 2-point conversion in order to win. What did we learn about your Illini in that game at home against a pretty bad Purdue team?
Yeah, what's interesting is like typically I say, hey, their secondary. I think their secondary is awesome, and I think that's why it was surprising they gave up that many points to, by the way, the backup quarterback for Purdue. They don't have a pass rush at all. And when you don't have a pass rush, it's going to be hard for your secondary to constantly defend. You know how many sacks they had against Purdue? One of the worst Power 4 teams in all of college football. One freaking sack against Purdue. The defensive line, they struggle where it matters the most. And honestly, I think this is the best coaching job we've seen from Brett Bielema at Illinois, because I don't think their offensive line is great. Their defensive line can't get to the quarterback, and they can't stop the run, which is why I'm terrified about this game against Michigan. The fact that they're winning these games and they are losing the battle in the trenches every single time is very alarming for the Illini. And without that pass rush, without the ability to stop the run, I think they're a team that, though, yes, they beat Michigan, I think they have a legitimate resume for the college football playoff. They're also susceptible to potential losses against teams that are unranked like Purdue.
Yeah. And if you don't have a pass rush, which is something that Missouri is dealing with a bit right now,
Man, they're dealing with a lot.
it
they
comes
got bigger
back
issues.
to bite you. I don't know that they do have bigger issues. I think they have pretty similar issues to Illinois right now. One of their problems, though, is I don't know about this passing game. So to answer the question of what did we learn about Mizzou this weekend on the road at UMass, a game that I still cannot believe that they played. Did you guys see them walking into the locker room? It appeared as if they were going to, like, not to speak down to any of the high school programs across the greater St. Louis metro area, but
Here it comes.
it looked like they were going to, like, St. Charles High. Like,
Whoa.
in fact, I run at the St. Charles High track a decent amount. I think St. Charles has better facilities than what I saw them walking into for Mizzou.
Now it makes-
it's UMass on the road.
Now it makes sense when Matt Kessel was with us during training camp and we asked him about UMass's football, and he's like, yeah, I
go
don't
for
know
a hockey game.
I don't know much about them.
Dude, it was wild. They won. They didn't have their starting running back in this one because his back locked up from him or for him before the game. I'm not totally sure I buy that. I think Mizzou was just like, hey, we're not going to have them take hits against UMass. They ran for 231 on the ground. They threw the ball 24 times and it went for 230 yards. Nothing was really downfield for the most part. Luther Burden was great when he got the ball, but I don't know, man. It was still weird. It was still, they won the game 45-3. They more than covered the spread. Like,
Good teams
they
cover.
did what they needed to do. There's just still so much yet to be determined on if Missouri is good, much less college football playoff good. I have no idea. And Auburn's not a good team. They should win this one by a sizable margin. It really just comes down to that stretch down over the next 3 weeks. Bama, Oklahoma, South Carolina. That's when we'll learn what Mizzou is. That's the stretch that we'll really learn. We're supposed to learn a little bit about them against Texas A&M, and it just added more questions and answers.
I think we learned a lot about them versus Texas A&M.
Coming up next, NFL Quick Hitters here on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendrickson here at the Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. St. Louis Blues made a couple of moves today as they activated Brandon Saad from the paternity list, and they placed Alexander Texier on the injured reserve with an upper body injury, as that comes after the Blues fell to the Vegas Golden Knights over the weekend. They'll be back in action tomorrow as they have their home opener against the Minnesota Wild. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5:30 with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 6:30 with Joey Vitale and Chris Kerber. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
All right, it's time for some NFL quick hitters with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. I hope you went to the pumpkin patch yesterday, ladies and gentlemen.
I didn't, man. I just didn't get that opportunity.
Because you missed a lot of nothing if you did.
Come on.
That was the weekend. This was the Sunday. Don't go on Saturdays. Do not miss college football right now. It is must watch from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Sundays in the NFL very much are not.
Are you kidding me? I woke up at 9:30. It was must-watch television when the Chicago Bears just put a spanking on Jacksonville.
That was fun to watch. Caleb Williams is legit, man.
Fantasy football-wise, that was really fun to watch.
Caleb has arrived, and that's where I wanted to begin, actually, Alex. The Bears are really good.
Yeah.
The Packers beat the ever-living hell out of the Arizona Cardinals, a team that threw a little bit of coin at for a money line parlay. I had 4 legs on my money line parlay for the underdogs this weekend, by the way. I don't know if you guys have seen. The underdogs got absolutely destroyed for the first time this year. 0-4. 0-4 on the 4-leg money line parlay.
You didn't even make it close. You didn't even make it exciting.
Yep, not good. I had the Commanders as well, who did make it interesting.
I had a 9-legger. And I only hit 5.
I had the Broncos, who were down basically by the time that I sat down to watch the 3 o'clock games. Just overall not great.
Gave up with that one.
Let's stick with the NFC North, though. The Bears, the Packers, the Vikings, and the Lions have the 4 best point differentials in the NFL so far this year, Alex. All 4 of them currently reside in the NFC North. Alex, are we going to get a division that has all 4 teams make the postseason? Is that possible?
I was going to ask you. I don't think that's possible, right?
I mean, it's technically possible, but
you have to get
difficult.
Yeah, I was going to say, but I mean, you have to be significant because, like, I think the Buccaneers are going to at least keep it competitive. But beyond the Buccaneers, yeah, I would probably say your best shot is to get 3 or maybe 4 teams from the NFC North, because
I think you got to get to at least 9 to get in this year.
I look around and I don't think the Cowboys are getting there unless they do something drastic. I don't think the Eagles are going to be getting there. The NFC West fooled me way too quickly this season.
Rams are still in it.
Yeah, no, they're not. The Cardinals,
they
the
don't
Seahawks,
have a single team in the NFC West with a winning record right now.
We're in it.
0 winning records in the NFC West.
None of those teams are going to be effective. And then you go to the South. I think you've got Falcons and Buccaneers that'll be jockeying for that top spot. I legitimately think all 4 teams in the NFC North are better than every other team in the NFC right now.
Yeah, I think you're going to see 3. I think we're going to see one of those teams potentially end up losing out just because they get beat up in this division. Who that is yet, I'm not sure. I still think it might be the Bears. Caleb Williams is playing better.
I think so, too.
We talked about Caleb Williams having a good game. He threw for 4 touchdowns. He threw for like 230 yards.
He was really good in that game.
He was really
didn't
good.
have to throw for
He didn't
yards.
have to throw a lot, but it's also Jacksonville.
Sure.
And they stink. So I think the Bears are the team that ends up falling out of this. I think you probably do potentially see 2 teams come out of the NFC South. I think it probably will be Tampa Bay and Atlanta. I do think you will see 3 out of the North, though. I do think you're going to see Minnesota, Detroit, Green Bay. The Bears are the one that I'm still skeptical of. And honestly, I'm still a little skeptical of the Minnesota Vikings just because it's Sam Darnold. But their defense is really freaking good, and I think that's how they get to the playoffs.
Here's where it falls off for the Bears. 3 straight weeks, Packers, Vikings, Lions. And then you follow that up with the Niners, Vikings, Lions once again. Yeah. That 6-game stretch is where the Bears fall out of it. But I still think the quarterback-wise, you're going to be talking about the Bears being one of the more exciting teams in the NFC.
The other team for that is the Washington Commanders, who this weekend, I feel like in a loss, proved their worth. They were really good in that game, man. They had a real shot. Jaden Daniels was really solid against Baltimore. I thought their running game would be able to do a little bit more than it did. They didn't do anything on the ground against Baltimore, but they did as much as they needed to for the most part through the air. Ultimately, Baltimore proved to be too much. The Ravens are a really good team. They're not great, but they're a really, really good team. And I think the first couple of weeks kind of threw us off the scent. They were an inch away from tying things up against the Chiefs. They might have gone for 2 in that spot, knowing who John Harbaugh is on the road at the Chiefs. You probably go for 2 in that spot, try to win it right there. And then the next week against the Raiders, they just collapsed. This is a good Ravens team. Who did you learn more about, Alex, in that game between the Ravens and the Commanders?
Commanders. I know what the Baltimore Ravens are. It's not going to be pretty every week, but they're going to find a way to keep it close and possibly win. It really depends on Jackson not making mistakes and Derrick Henry just being incredible for that week. The Commanders are the one that I didn't expect to keep it close. I know I picked them in our pick'em, but I mean, it was kind of a Hail Mary because you look at Washington and you're thinking like, okay, offensively, can you compete against a better defense? Because, yes, they hadn't played against anybody really this season. And, man, they met that. They answered that call with the way that Jaden Daniels performed, the way that their receivers scored. And I actually think they called some really good plays on the field offensively, like the one in the end zone that Dan Quinn had them do that quick turnaround route. That was an impressive play by Daniels to be able to pull it off, but just on coaching-wise itself.
Yeah, Daniels was really good in that game again, man. He's legit. Him and Caleb Williams, I've got no questions about either. I think they're both just going to be really excellent quarterbacks at the NFL level. So I agree. I think we learned more about the Commander side of things. That being said, I will give my flowers to the Ravens. I've been critical of them all year long. I still don't believe in them as a playoff threat. However, if we're talking about who is playing the best football in the AFC right now, you can't get past the top 2 or 3 in that conversation without bringing up the Baltimore Ravens. They're playing some really good ball right now. On the other side of things, it is getting ugly for the Dallas Cowboys. They are now heading into the bye. They're 3-3 on the year, and they just got destroyed, embarrassed at home against the Detroit Lions.
On Jerry's birthday.
They're lucky right now to be 3-3. Very fortunate. Because over the past couple of weeks, they could have lost against the Giants, and they probably should have lost against the Pittsburgh Steelers a couple of weeks ago. Dak Prescott went out there and did his best Houdini act. Is it over for this version of the Cowboys? Like, is Mike McCarthy on his last legs? What is happening right now with Dallas, guys? I didn't see this one coming.
I didn't either, especially because how bad they are defensively. I thought that was their area that they could utilize and keep them decent until their offense figured out whatever they were going to do. I think it's over until they fire Mike McCarthy. I don't even know if firing him is going to make a difference because they only have one option, and it's CeeDee Lamb, and defenses know that, and that's how Dak Prescott's looked like he's looked over these last couple of weeks. But
they're way too top-heavy.
Yeah.
They've got like 5 stars, and then everybody else.
And you've got no running game, so you have no go-to for Dak Prescott. It's literally heave the ball downfield and hope CeeDee Lamb gets it. And if your defense stinks, the first step if you're Jerry Jones is to fire your coach. But again, I don't know if that's going to make that much of a difference because you're so top heavy.
It's crazy how thin they became and how quickly they became this thin. Because you look at their receiving core, you're 100% correct, Alex. It's CeeDee Lamb and then everybody else. You look at their running backs, they have nobody. And running backs, the old mantra, running backs don't matter. I don't totally believe that. I think running backs do matter to a point. I think they become overvalued for some. The Cowboys undervalue the position.
You got to at least have a threat of like, this guy could hurt us.
Dude, you got to have somebody that can go out there and be usable. They have nobody right now. They thought Rico Dowdle was going to be able to do it. The corpse of Ezekiel Elliott was going to be able to do it. They got a whole lot of nothing back there.
Dalvin Cook.
Dalvin Cook, who literally, has he played a snap yet?
I don't think so.
I think he's still in their practice squad.
We knew he was no good. Last year, he was nothing for the Jets. It's over for him.
Yeah.
The Cowboys don't have enough offensively right now. And on the defensive side of the ball, they're a joke. They've got nothing. Now, some of that is due to injury. Some of it is they're just not good.
Yeah.
Like they don't have the dudes. I don't understand that one either because they were a decent unit a year ago.
They were great.
It's a weird thing. I know a lot of people will give me crap for believing in the Cowboys. They're a regular season team typically. You can count on them to win 11, 12 games. And then they fail and collapse spectacularly in the postseason. This year, it's going to be the reverse. This team ain't getting to 11 wins, dude. They're going to be lucky to get to 9.
Who are they going to regret giving all of the money to more, Dak or CeeDee Lamb?
I don't know. I would say neither because I think both of them are elite at their position. And I know people will text BK, he's not elite. Dak looks like Dak's a loser. Dak's a good quarterback.
Not great. Good.
It's not working for him right now because he doesn't have enough around him.
Yeah.
And you have to have a supporting cast. You have to. Otherwise, it's going to look like this. But this is what their upcoming schedule looks like, boys. You ready for this? At San Francisco.
Loss.
At Atlanta.
Loss.
Philly.
They'll probably win.
Houston.
Loss.
At Washington.
Loss.
it's entirely possible they lose 4 of their next 5
And
games.
honestly, if the Phillies are at least healthy with Brown and Devontae Smith and with Saquon, I don't think that defense is going to be able to stop Philly. It'll be a shootout, but I don't think that defense is going to be able to stop
Those
Philadelphia.
games are always close, and that one should be no exception.
How about them Cowboys?
So, you guys all on board with Bill Belichick joining?
Dude, Belichick would hate being there.
That feels like
Jerry
Mike
Jones. Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Vrabel. That feels like Vrabel.
I was thinking, knowing Jerry Jones, he'd be like, "Oh, I want the young offensive mind." So
Does Ben Johnson take that job?
That's
No,
who I
there you
thought
go.
exactly.
There you go. Me and T-Bone
I
are
was
on the
like,
same
they
path
would
there.
100%
He
do
saw
Ben
that
Johnson.
in person this weekend.
If you're Ben Johnson,
Oh, yeah.
though, no.
Yeah, Jerry Jones is like, look, he's
I
got
would take that
offensive
job.
linemen.
Man, I don't
It's
know.
the Dallas Cowboys,
I
man.
know.
If you're Ben Johnson, I would.
You got to take
I
it.
guess job security wise, you know you're going to be good even if you suck for a couple of years. But
That's the thing.
that roster is so light beyond what you have at the top, and now you're stuck with a lot of those
But
guys.
it's a good starting point. It's a good starting
And if
point.
you're Ben, and I don't really know what jobs were intriguing this offseason to where Ben Johnson said, I'm just going to go back to Detroit.
We'll see what happens to
passed on
Cincy.
the-
Maybe Cincinnati becomes available, and that's a
that
really
would be
intriguing
much more
job.
appealing than Dallas.
He passed on Johnson did on the Commander's job. Mm-hmm. Remember, he
Looking
interviewed.
back.
Yeah, he interviewed
Maybe
for
that
it
was
and like flew back to Detroit.
I just, man, when you're in Detroit, and again, at some point you have to take that leap to be a head coach and get it. But like, if you're in Detroit, do you want to leave that great situation and go to that disaster in Dallas?
I can imagine the press conference now. Jerry Jones, why'd you hire Ben Johnson? Well, I saw what he's doing with the offensive linemen, running those laterals with them, sending out Dan Skipper as a wideout. Really intrigued me for what our offense could be.
I mean, that's happening.
I just love.
I actually would like to amend my answer. T-Bone's right.
I want more camera angles of Jerry in his press box on his birthday with his team getting shellacked.
Yesterday, he gave like a 3-minute press conference after the game. And the first answer, he said, well, we don't have enough time to get this corrected during the bye week. And then literally 1 minute later, asked another question and then said, well, we're going to get this fixed during the bye.
And then he-
it's like, Jerry.
Then he looked at a reporter and said, do I look stupid to you?
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, questions and answers coming up
Jerry.
next here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers from the 314. Guys, what are your opinions on Shohei Ohtani? Is he the most talented all-around player that you've ever seen? No, that player is Barry Bonds for me. Barry Bonds is the most athletic player early in his prime and then became the best power hitter that I've ever seen. So between the two, he was Willie Mays and then he was Barry Bonds. So, yeah, I will go Barry Bonds is the most talented I've ever seen.
Mine would be Shohei because, like, I've seen him do it as a pitcher. I've seen him do it as a hitter. And then this season I saw him do it as a base stealer. Like, I mean, you literally are talking about every area of the game he has mastered. So he'd be the one for me.
I think
Barry Bonds as a 25-year-old player, 33 home runs, 114 ribbies, 52 stolen bases, a 970 OPS, led the league in OPS.
How many strikeouts did he throw that year?
Yeah, what was his ERA?
No, there were no strikeouts this year for Shohei Ohtani either.
Okay, but I've seen him in the past.
Sure.
Yeah. I think Ohtani's the best athlete for me, and he's done it. Checks notes clean. You know, Bonds cheated, so that's why he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Depends on
Doesn't
how you
belong in
feel
the Hall
about the
of Fame.
betting aspect of the game.
He was deemed to not have been involved. I think Ohtani. I think Ohtani is the best.
Sure.
I think Ohtani is
All of this
the
is
best player I've ever seen.
allegedly.
Yeah, I mean, Alex is spot on. I mean, you look at him; he can hit for 50 home runs. He can steal 50 bases. Oh, by the way, he could probably go out there and give you, when healthy, 150 innings and have one of the best ERAs and best strikeouts per nine in all of baseball.
People are bringing up Bo Jackson. Ladies and gentlemen, I did not see Bo Jackson play. I've just seen highlights of Bo Jackson
I wasn't
play.
around.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We're getting a lot of, of course BK likes Barry Bonds. Yeah, I liked the best player that I've ever seen. Sorry. T-Bone. This one comes from FedEx Brian.
Oh,
We met FedEx Brian.
How do you feel about Detroit putting Ville Husso on waivers? I mean, for years you were telling all of us that he's so much better for Benner and that the Blues should keep him over Bennington. So how do you feel about him getting put on waivers?
Really, FedEx Brian? We couldn't come up with a better question for questions and
I
answers.
think it's a spot-on one for somebody who's defended Ville Husso for a long time.
Billy Husso didn't have a defense in Detroit. You know, no goalie was ever going to succeed there.
Ville
They
Husso didn't
decided
have
their
a
other goalies were better.
Literally, Cam Talbot was
I've
better.
seen him play well.
Yeah, you also saw him lose a series in like
Look.
3 games for Minnesota.
Billy's going to be better for being let go by Detroit, okay?
Here's
I don't know
his-
where he's going to go.
Here's his save
Probably
percentage
Toronto with Berube.
every season.
Oh, that makes sense.
That'll
They
be
really don't
fantastic.
have a defense.
Oh, he'll be fine
Here's
there.
his save percentage: 919,
That's pretty good.
896,
Ooh.
892, 714.
Look,
Yeah, it makes sense that they put him on waivers.
Steve Yzerman said this is not a part of the Yzer plan.
well, the Iser plan stinks, so.
Probably does.
Yeah, look, you know what? He'll be better off for leaving
Honestly,
Detroit.
you know who's picking him up? Colorado.
Oh, he's going to win the Cup for Colorado.
Colorado's. I mean, they just picked up this Capo Kakinen from the former Minnesota Wild goaltender. Like, they just gave up another 6 goals. They don't have a goaltender, so I could see him picking him up.
Edmonton is worse. They
Edmonton is also in a bad spot.
You know, they've only scored. I think
Space,
they've
too.
scored 3 goals and given up like 19 or something like that.
Yeah, Nashville's. Yusei Saros will be back and healthy for them, but they're
Some players
regretting having a
Some
backup.
players can only succeed in one spot. Husso's happens to be in St. Louis.
Yeah,
so I
that's
say
not
we
happening.
claim him and bring him back.
We've got better goalies.
Yeah.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers from the 314. Guys, why isn't Vanderbilt ranked after beating Alabama and then going on the road this weekend in beating Kentucky?
Yeah, they beat Alabama twice. Didn't Kentucky? Or no, that was Georgia. I always get that one mixed up. Never mind.
I was like, what are you talking about, man?
I always get that mixed up.
It's the 2 losses on the resume. This early in the season, it's really hard to put a team with 2 losses on the resume into the ranked column, including one of those losses coming against Georgia State.
Just gonna say that.
Yeah, it's not going to help. Losing against Mizzou is not a great loss at this point, and losing against Georgia State is a really bad loss. So that's why I think Vanderbilt probably will be ranked sooner rather than later, but as of today, you can't have them in there. They'll beat Ball State. They'll probably end up in the ranked column after this week, and then they'll lose to Bama or lose to Texas by like 17, and then they'll be back out of the top 25. But I think they'll probably be ranked after this week.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt you see them at least once in the top 25 because they are a pesky team. I don't know how good they really are. They're going to keep every game close. Their quarterback is good enough to where he can
guy's
scramble and make these teams pay like he did this week against Kentucky. They're a good football team. They're probably a 2-3 loss. Well, they've already got 2 losses. They're probably a 3-4 loss team, and you'll probably see them in top 25 at least once.
Last time Vanderbilt was ranked was 2013.
Ooh.
So if they could get in once,
By the way,
that would be one hell of a
think of the teams that could be in the top 25 if that happens. Vandy, Illinois, Indiana, and there's even up more Army, Navy. Throw in those as well. Just a weird year for college
Pittsburgh,
football.
SMU.
Iowa State's, I think, started 6-0 for the first time since like the
they're
80s
legitimately
or something.
good.
Yeah.
It's a weird year, man. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. All right, he's Alex's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, would Jack Flaherty have reached this kind of ceiling if he was still in St. Louis? We've got some interesting thoughts on that. We'll tell them to you next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So the Dodgers have now completed 33 consecutive scoreless innings for their pitchers. It's the longest postseason scoreless streak in history. It ties the 1966 Orioles in that regard. They are just the third team, Alex, to record 3 straight postseason shutouts, joining the 66 Orioles and the 1905 New York baseball Giants.
Ooh, I remember that team.
A big part of that was last night what Jack Flaherty was able to do for them. He was spectacular. From start to finish, looked in complete command. The Mets had no answers for what he was bringing to the table. Finished the game 7 innings, 2 hits allowed, 6 strikeouts in that one. Left the game giving his team every opportunity to be able to win it. No earned runs allowed for Jack Flaherty in that one. Alex, we're going to have a lot of conversations, I would imagine, or you're going to hear a lot over the next few days about the Cardinals that still remain in the postseason, because Jack Flaherty is one of them. Jose Quintana is another. We saw Lane Thomas with a big moment over the weekend as well. T-Bone said that he would be a good postseason addition for a team.
Yeah.
He has absolutely been that.
Nice center fielder, too.
When you look back, I looked at this earlier today. The 2022 Cardinals had Miles Michaelis, who at the time had a 200-inning season with a sub-3.5 ERA. They had Jordan Montgomery. They had Jose Quintana. They had Jack Flaherty, although he was injured for most of the season. The bullpen included Ryan Helsley, Andre Palante, Gio, who was still in his prime, Jordan Hicks, Zach Thompson, who at that point was good.
Ace Zach Thompson, I remember that.
The offense had 2 of the 3 MVP candidates in the National League. They had the guy that won the MVP. They also had Albert Pujols, who in the second half was the best offensive contributor in the National League.
This sounds like a great year. Did they make it to the World Series?
They did not. They did not win a game in the postseason.
Oh. So they were a regular season team. Good.
But you look back at that rotation, Monty led a team to the World Series last year as a top 2 starter. Jose Quintana is a significant part of a rotation that's currently in the NLCS.
To see a trend here.
Jack Flaherty is the number 1 starter for a team that has a really good shot to go to the World Series this year. Does it give you confidence that the Cardinals are picking the right guys, that it's just not the right timing? Like, what do we do with this?
No, it doesn't give me confidence at all.
They're good luck Chuck with pitchers.
Yeah, it gives me more confidence that, hey, this guy's, you know what it is? It's what the Blues went through almost every year for like 20 years, to where this guy will be great on a Stanley Cup championship team once he's traded away.
Oh, boy.
Because like every time I see a pitcher or a position player on another team in the postseason, it's like, why couldn't he have done that for the Cardinals? Luke Weaver, who's closes out game-winning runs for our games for the New York Yankees. I just melted in my own brain there for a couple of seconds. And I have no idea. Every single
Luke
time
Weaver is the closer for the New York Yankees. Yes.
I properly can form sentences every once in a while. Every single time you see a guy have a big moment on a big stage, it's seemingly as a Cardinal on another team. So that gives me the opposite of what the Cardinals are doing, to where,
I think this one hurts the most to me, if I'm being totally honest.
Randy Arozarena
this is
was
the one
Quintana?
that hurts. No, the Jack Flaherty one hurts more than any
Randy
others.
Arozarena was Babe Ruth for an entire postseason.
That one hurt because it was annoying. This one hurts because you had it.
Yeah.
Like, you got it. It was here. The thing that they're currently lacking and have been lacking since the last time that we saw Jack Flaherty pitch the way that he did is Jack Flaherty pitching this way. And that's what hurts so much about it is he was here, dude. Like, you had the number 1 start. If you had this version of Jack Flaherty with this version of Sonny Gray, you've got the 1-2 starters. You've got it. It's already ready to go, in place, set in stone. You don't have to worry about it anymore. You just give him the long-term extension. I have no idea if it would last long-term, but at least you've got it internally right now. That's what hurts so much to me about this.
See, that's where I disagree, because I don't think Flaherty was ever going to do this with the Cardinals. I think off-the-field stuff impacted Jack Flaherty in terms of he became frustrated with this Cardinals team, whether it was injury related or we saw how it went his final year here where he didn't like the guy that was behind the plate for him. I viewed this as Jack Flaherty was not fed up with St. Louis, but it was to the point where it was always conflicting against each other, and it impacted his performance as well. Now, injuries, of course, were tied into this, whether the Cardinals didn't handle him right or he wanted to come back faster. He seemed to be upset with St. Louis, and I don't think this Jack Flaherty that you're seeing with the Dodgers was ever going to be back with the Cardinals.
I think that's very much in play. Very much in play. I also think some of what you saw in his final season here in St. Louis and really over the last couple of years was him just lashing out because he didn't know what to do. He felt like I think Jack sometimes did this where he's not performing. There's got to be an outside reason for that. It cannot possibly be that he's just not able to get there anymore. It's got to be something externally that is causing him to not be able to get the results. And so first it was, well, it's the catcher. What changed between now and last year when I was having better results? Well, it's clearly the catcher. It's Wilson Contreras' fault. So they changed the catcher for him. Well, that didn't work. Well, clearly it's I'm not 100%, but I got to get back as quickly as possible. Got to get back as quickly as possible. Well, it's not allowing me to get back as quickly as possible. It's Mo, so it's on Mo that I'm not getting back as quickly as possible. He gets back as quickly as possible. Well, this isn't working either. It's the team. I need to go somewhere else. Goes to Baltimore. That didn't go well for him either. And I think in the offseason, he had to look himself in the mirror and say, it's me. I'm not healthy. I've got to get myself back to 100%. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to reach my full potential and get the contracts that I believe that I'm deserving of. So he goes out there and he goes on the full free agency tour, right? And there was a lot that was written about why he ended up picking Detroit. And one of the reasons why is because he felt like they could get the most out of him, right? They had put a plan in place for him to be able to succeed and to be fully healthy. And he was this year. He was spectacular for them. And now he's been great for the Dodgers ever since coming over to LA as well. He's pitched like a true number one, and now he's doing it again in the postseason when the moments matter the most. I don't know that you could have had that here or not. I'm not sure, Alex, to your point. I also don't think they ever could have brought him back. I think it was the correct decision, and we all said it at the time last year. You had to let him go. You got to change for change's sake. Even if it ends up being the wrong decision, you've got to make the changes. But you look at it, and it's like, man,
Darn it.
you had it. It was here. You developed it.
Shoot.
That was your guy, homegrown, developed through the system, a number one starter in Major League Baseball, and you had him. And because of injuries, which affect everybody, this is not specific to the Cardinals. Look at the Dodgers' rest of their rotation. There's a reason they had to trade for Jack Flaherty. Because of injuries, it went to the wayside, and now he's in the place where he always wanted to be, pitching for the team that he always wanted to pitch for.
It was always going to end
And he's
this way.
showing out in the way that we all knew he was capable of if he was fully healthy. It's so incredibly frustrating that the logical endpoint has happened. It just happened in the most roundabout, ass-backwards way possible to end up here.
And power rankings of the top 5 most frustrating post-Cardinals moments. Marcell Ozuna's got to be up there too, right?
Oh, being a multi-time MVP candidate? Yeah, that's
All you needed was the
frustrating.
DH and be like, oh, Marcell Ozuna actually fares out well here.
That is frustrating. But yeah, I'm with you 100% on the Jack Flaherty thing. Look, we all agree they had to move on from him because there was also the outcome that he never did get healthy again. Look, I think if he could have come to that kind of humble pie moment that he clearly had in the offseason when looking for teams and also got just a 1-year deal, by the way, with the Detroit Tigers, I think he could have made it work here in St. Louis. I really do. I mean, he always had the stuff to play when he was healthy. And what you saw at the back end of his career here in St. Louis is he didn't have his command, which he has back again. His stuff wasn't as crisp. Why? I think it was because he had been dealing with injuries. And something probably got thrown off mechanically to where he was trying to adjust for it. The Cardinals either didn't pick it up or Jack didn't listen to the Cardinals when they were saying, hey, here's what's going wrong. And it's what led to him going sideways. And it is a little bit... It is frustrating, even though it is the right decision by the Cardinals to move away from him when they did and let him walk this past offseason. But I couldn't help but go back. We've always had the conversation of, well, when you're looking for a number one defenseman or when you're looking for a number one starter, why are they never available? It's because teams don't let them walk. And now I look at it, and again, the Cardinals made the right decision to let him walk, but it's just a frustrating end to what, if you looked at him, you could see that Jack Flaherty was a number one. It was just a matter of, could you get him back to that form, and could he ever get healthy again? And the clear answer was, yeah, he could, and now he's doing it.
Some guys, and I don't know because I'd have to talk to Jack, but some guys just aren't able to have that come to Jesus moment until they're forced into it. And
100%.
And I go back to Vince Dunn now with the Seattle Kraken. Now, some of this was just underutilized maybe here in St. Louis, but the piece that was written after his first year in Seattle was, look, I had to be basically told that nobody wanted me, and then I got to where I needed to, and it forced me to go out there and perform. Even if Jack would have been here and they would have given him a 1-year deal and said, hey, just go back and prove it because we believe you'll be healthy next year. I don't think Jack ever really would have had that come to Jesus moment in St. Louis until he had to go to free agency where nobody was willing to give him the amount of money and years he wanted and say, well, I got to go play for the Detroit Tigers, and they're going to be the ones that get it out of me. And that's when you have that come to Jesus moment.
I'm totally with you. I think that happens a lot. Like it's something that I wonder about with Nolan Gorman, for example.
Yeah.
Was this his year where he had to have that moment? Where it was
Walker
like,
as well.
Sure. Especially for Gorman, though, because he failed so spectacularly.
At the Major League
Gorman
level.
was supposed to be... he was supposed to have arrived last year, and this was the coming out party where he's going to hit 35 home runs. And he was so bad when it came to the strikeouts, they had to send him back down again. And even when they needed guys at the end of the season, it's like, yeah, no, Gorman's not an option.
Yeah.
He's got to get things fixed down there. Walker was being called up before Gorman was. And I do wonder if maybe he had that kind of a moment this year for the Cardinals. Dylan Carlson, one of those guys that, like, could this have been the lesson for him? I don't think so. I think Carlson is more, this is just injuries that have taken their toll on him as well. And I'm not sure that he's going to be able to get it back on track. I don't think he ever necessarily had the ceiling that Jack Flaherty does. Somebody on the text line said, guys, Jack Flaherty is not a number one. He absolutely is. 100% right now in Major League Baseball, given what's out there, that is what a number one starter looks like. The performance that you saw from him last night, number ones give you that.
Sonny Gray did that for you, and everybody's in agreement that Sonny Gray has been a number one for the Cardinals this season.
They're not, but yeah.
Wait, you're saying Cardinals fans don't agree on
Jack
things?
Flaherty's more of a one than Sonny is.
Yeah.
Like, just
because he's done it in the postseason?
flat. No, because he goes deeper into games. Like, Jack this year was a prototypical number one starter in Major League Baseball. In the modern era. 20 years ago, he wouldn't have been. But we're pitching today, and for today's standards, Jack Flaherty was a number one starter in Major League Baseball this year. There's really no getting around it. That being said, I was wrong. Somebody else on the text line said, guys, none of you wanted him back last season. Totally agree. And I think that they were correct in not bringing him back. They had to get the vibes better in that locker room. And I think part of that was saying goodbye to guys that either didn't want to be here or just were unhappy. And there was too much history of being unhappy inside of that clubhouse. I think it was the right call. Didn't work out. It backfired.
Now, with that being said, should there have been more conversations internally in the organization to bring him back at the deadline? I think the answer to that is yes.
We said it at the time. That we did say.
Yeah, that one is where I would look back and say, you know what, in the offseason, I think it was the right decision. Walk away. To your point, better vibes in the locker room. I don't think he would have been a problem in this clubhouse.
I don't think
really
not at the deadline, because at that point he was having success.
Yeah.
And that goes
think
back
he
to
would
what
have
I
done
said,
this,
where he
though.
was lashing out because he was failing. And now he's having success. I think had he come back to St. Louis, they were never going to do it. Had he come back to St. Louis, I think he would have helped them succeed down the stretch, more so than what Eric Fetty did. That being said, dude, they had so many other issues. I don't know that it would have mattered to like make the postseason. He would have helped them, though. He certainly would have helped them.
I don't think it would have, because I think he still would have. Now, he was, of course, injured, but he still would have had Wilson Contreras as the catcher. I think there was something there between those two.
I don't think that was the real issue. I think looking back, I think he knows. Looking back, he was in the wrong there. I think what that was him lashing out. I think he lashed out in all directions, and I don't think that would have been a problem. And Wilson barely played for them down the stretch anyway, so it really wouldn't have been
He
a
would have
problem.
loved Pajes, though.
With Alex and T-Bone on
been
BK,
told.
coming up in 15 minutes or so, we've been really harsh on some of the decisions that Drew Bannister has made with his lineups ever since he took over as the interim head coach, but certainly over the first 3 games of the regular season as the full-time head coach. There are a couple of things, though, that he's doing. They're kind of brilliant, and we want to give him the shine that he deserves for those as well. We'll get into that coming up in about 15 minutes or so. Coming up next, it's time for our football pick'em reveal. How do we do this weekend with our picks, boys? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. All right, it is time for our football pick'em reveal. Came into this one, I had 0 points last week. Alex and T-Bone both got off to a good start.
That's what a hole looks like, BK. And you were in one.
Alex had 5 points. T-Bone had 3. Alex had 5. T-Bone had 4 coming into this week. And
Big old goose egg.
I had 0. So I'm trying to work myself out of this thing. We'll see how it goes. If you don't know how we do this, every Friday we pick 3 games against the spread. College football or the NFL. It's the football games over the weekend. It just has to be done prior to the start of our show on Monday. So no Monday Night Football, but Sunday night's eligible. Any of the Saturday games are eligible. Friday night games as well, now that we're playing those in college football. Those are all in play. No props, no point totals, just against the spread. We do this each month as a new part of our pick'em punishment possibility. Alex is going to be serving his punishment, by the way, on Wednesday of this week. So be sure to check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/101ESPN STL.
Got the tape because I wasn't sure if we were doing it today.
Alex is going to be duct taped. Oh, that's not duct tape.
It's worse. It's packing tape.
No. We're getting you the full silver duct tape to put around you.
The packing tape was going to be worse.
No. Oh, no.
Duct tape you can't move.
There will be no moving, my friend. It'll be duct taped to that chair for the entire 3 hours of the show, so be sure to stay tuned for that. All right, it's time for this week's reveal. Let's start out with a game that T-Bone and Alex both agreed on the NFL side. Let's see if it went their way.
I'm taking Washington plus 6.5. Oh, Washington hasn't played anybody. I don't care. That offense is fire.
It is my 1-point play. I have the exact same thing. I learned from my Seahawks experience of the 6.5-point spread. Commanders plus 6.5. I'm with you. I don't know if they win this football game. I do think they keep it close.
2nd and 5. Still faced up with power with Henry with a touchdown. Great ball, Tony. His 2nd touchdown of the game.
I honestly felt good about it going into that last. They couldn't stop Derrick Henry. If you stop Henry on that drive that he picked up the first down, you get the ball back. And I had a feeling Washington would drive down the field and at least tie it up. Didn't know if they were going to win, but overtime field goal we would have covered. I felt good about it.
Yeah, I did too. And to be completely honest with everyone, I came to the office today thinking I won. I thought I had him at plus 7, and it turns out I did not win.
Which would have been a push, and we still would have lost.
So all year long, the best bet in the NFL has been, hey, take the teams out of the massive spreads, right? This weekend it was the opposite. This weekend, teams that were favored by at least 5.5 went 4-1 against the spread. So this was the weekend where everything circled back in the opposite direction. And one of those games was the one that you just selected, with the Commanders not being able to cover the 6.5.
It's unfortunate timing.
I would have done it again if you had asked me today.
The next one up
so I would have won.
is one that me and Alex actually agreed on, something that Alex always hates. Didn't work out for us this time around.
I think the Buccaneers are just a better team. I think they have a chance to put up like 30-plus points in this game. Give me the Bucs. It's only a 3-point line in this one.
And as long as the offense just doesn't light up Tampa Bay, which I don't think Spencer Rattler's going to do with that offense, I think Tampa Bay holds them down. I know it's on the road. I know I'm taking the favorite in this one, but I'm with BK, man. Tampa -3. That was the easy 3-point play for me.
Mayfield in the pocket, throws end zone. It's caught by Otten for the touchdown. An up and down drive ends in a score for Tampa Bay.
You texted us early of that game saying
when they were up 17.
Yeah, when you felt great, and then I'm like, this mother bleeper just BKO'd my point spread.
You almost did that to my Illini.
But Spencer Rattler, man.
I actually thought he played okay.
He looked good, but then when he needed to get back into the game with his team, he failed miserably.
I mean, to be fair, that's a really tough spot. It's a good defense. Todd Bowles does a good job of coordinating things as well. It makes things very difficult for young quarterbacks. I was actually really impressed by what Spencer Rattler was able to do in that game, all things considered. He loses early on Chris Olave in that one. Rashid Shaheed did almost nothing over the course of that game. He's throwing to Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson and some guy named Bub Means. That's a real person, apparently, that plays for the
They
New
were
Orleans
getting
Saints.
everybody involved.
There were not a lot of great options for him. He did have a couple of good plays with his legs as well. I was impressed by what he's able to do, and they lost by 24. So, I mean, at a certain point, the Bucs just ran away with this thing. They are so clearly the superior team. I think the Bucs are a top 5 team in the NFC right now.
I'd agree with that.
Baker Mayfield's playing like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And I don't know how sustainable it is. He did have a couple of picks. Not all of them were on him in this one. I've been really impressed by what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been able to do.
He keeps his team in games. He keeps his teams in games, which is why it felt like a good play there, because whether they were going to be down or leading, you knew Baker had an opportunity in that one.
You know who I think Baker is a classic reminder of? We just talked about Jack, guy that was a 1 until he got hurt. I always thought Baker, not a great quarterback, but always in that 7 to 15 range. Yeah, but he wasn't healthy in a couple years, and that's what really threw him off. And then he went to Carolina, which was just a terrible situation. It was always likely that if he got to a good spot, this was going to be the outcome for Baker.
He's got a wide receiver that he went to college with. You knew it was just going to work with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, when you see what he's doing there, it reminds me so much of Jared Goff in L.A. before things went awry, and then Jared Goff now when we're seeing him in Detroit. It's not a one-for-one. Baker's much more mobile. They go about it a little differently. But the success that they can both have when they're at their best, those guys can lead you into a deep playoff run if they're at their best and they have the supporting cast that is necessary. All right, so that was a 3-point play for Alex. Good hit by you, Alex. 2-point play for me. Alex's 2-point play was also, of course, another NFL against the spread.
Take the Steelers on this one, guys. Aiden O'Connell's getting the start. We're going to act like O'Connell's the next coming of the Raiders' success. So Pittsburgh -3. That's my 2-point play.
Pitch it to Najee Harris. Harris sidesteps, get to the sideline. Najee Harris dives for the pylon. Harris takes it. Touchdown, Steelers. What a highlight.
That one felt good all along.
It's good to bet against a team that just has no ability to move the football consistently. Yeah. Aiden O'Connell's not a real NFL quarterback.
Whether it was Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell, that one felt like they weren't going to have any success for Pittsburgh.
Brock Bowers is awesome, dude.
Yeah.
He's amazing. Nothing else about that Raiders team is good. Yeah. Well, they had Max Crosby pushing his coach on the sideline.
Out of love, he said.
Max Crosby.
That's what it was. Yeah. Okay. Well, the last time I heard something like that was Aaron Rodgers, who pushed his coach away when he was trying to give him a bro hug, and then his coach got fired.
Oh, so you think that Stafford's gone?
Somebody needs to get Max Crosby out of Vegas. Yeah, that poor guy just needs to play playoff football.
Did you see the report this weekend, by the way, on Devontae Adams?
No, does he want to stay now?
Maybe, because apparently he's a big supporter of Aiden O'Connell. Yeah, that reaction you just had for any of the YouTube audience. That was my exact reaction when I read it from Adam Schefter.
That was a classic. Well, we'll keep him. Oh, we'll keep him.
Okay, tough guy.
Somebody typed out Devontae Adams' comments on that one.
All right, so that's a nice 2-point hit for Alex. He gets 5 points on the week, goes 2-1 overall, sitting pretty at 10 points
Safety
through the first couple of weeks. Let's see how T-Bone did on the college football side of things.
The Gators, they got to leave the swamp. They don't belong in the Rocky Top Mountains. Give me Tennessee at home, -14 against Florida.
Over the middle towards the end zone. He's got his man, DK, for a touchdown. From 3rd and 18. 46. And in a spot where it looked like it was balls with all of the advantages, the freshman Lagway steps up. And now the question. I don't know, Lewis. They originally sent the point after group out to try and kick it. They might go for 2 here.
They should have. He's a coward. I'm sorry. I'm going to let you cook on this one because your team ended up winning, but very much did not cover the 14-point spread. He's a coward. Billy Napier is an absolute coward and should be fired for losing that game the way that he did. Going on the road as an unranked team, 105,000 fans in the stands. Your freshman quarterback just came up with a huge play. You've got all the momentum. You've got Tennessee on the ropes. All you need to do is get 2 yards. 2 yards to win the football game. Put this thing away. Don't go into overtime against the team that is obviously better than you.
Too hard.
And instead he says, you know what, let's just go ahead and kick the point after. We'll see what happens in overtime. I'll try my efforts there. No, dude, you've got a true freshman quarterback who's barely completing 50% of his passes. You've got to try to win this thing here. They didn't do that. Tennessee won, so you were right. Tennessee ended up finding a way to pull it out in the end. But Tennessee's a fraud. And Billy Napier's a terrible football coach. All right, T-Bone, what'd you think of your team that ended up not being able to cover the 14-point spread?
What was that? Yeah, the Gators don't belong in the Rocky Top Mountains, and they just came in and nearly beat you. That was pathetic by Tennessee. That was the classic Josh Heupel special, where either they put up 52 or you barely survive and beat Florida. The worst part about it is I said their defense is really good and their defense played well. Guys, they knocked Graham Mertz out of that game, who's definitely the better quarterback in Florida, and that's not saying much because Graham Mertz is not very good. And yet you still barely beat them and didn't cover 14 points. Come on, Tennessee.
Their offense is just not very good. I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker the first few weeks. I fell for them beating NC State the way that they did because at the time NC State was ranked, and it totally threw me off because in that one I was like, oh, okay, you're doing this against a ranked opponent. You must be great. They won that game 51-10. Since then, here's what they've done. 25-15 win. That was very unconvincing on the road at Oklahoma, who's also not good. Arkansas, they lose in that one on the road. And then this one, they should have lost at home against Florida. Tennessee's not very good, man. They're, like, this weekend, they could totally beat Alabama, or they could lose by 3 scores. I don't think they can score against even that Bama defense at a high level. Kentucky at home in a couple of weeks, good luck, dude. That game's going to be like 13-6. I don't know who's coming out on top, but it's going to be ugly to watch. They got no chance against Georgia, and I will predict it right now. They will lose on the road at Vandy at the end of the season. That final game of the regular season, I'll take Vandy straight up. We'll see what happens in that one. But
make that your 3-point play right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Lock it in.
And lock in the line for it if you're that confident.
All right, T-Bone's 3-point play was a big one, and it came through for him.
They're getting their best quarterback back this week. Quinn Ewers is back, baby, and I'm going to the rivalry game between Texas and Oklahoma. You know what Oklahoma is? A bad football team. Yeah. Yet somehow they're still in the top 25. They'll probably beat Mizzou. They're not much better. But I like Texas minus 14 points against Oklahoma.
Texas trying to stretch the lead and cash in. Look out, Wisner's loose. For Travion Wisner to the end zone, and Texas.
Do you still think Quinn Ewers is the best quarterback on the team?
Yeah.
That sounded confident.
He was rusty.
He was not very good in that one.
By the way,
Oklahoma has a good defense.
Tennessee, take notes. That's how it's done when you're a 14-point favorite. Unbelievable.
I didn't leave that game feeling all that much better about either of these teams. I went into it not feeling very good about Oklahoma. They don't have an offense that can score. Went into it feeling like Texas is a really good team, but not as good as they were a year ago. And I think Quinn Ewers is the lesser of the 2 quarterbacks that they have as options. T-Bone, nice win. Nice hit there. Was that more about Oklahoma or Texas?
I actually think that one was more about Oklahoma. I still think Texas belongs in the top 3 teams. Oklahoma's just not very good. They're a fraudulent top 25 team, in my opinion.
All right, so T-Bone finishes the week with a 1-2 record. Did he get his 3-point play, though? And ultimately, that's the one you really want to get in this. So T-Bone is up to 7 points over the first couple of weeks. My 1-point play was in the college football slate. It was a late one, and it was a snug one.
Little out over our skis here with CU. Yes, they have a 4-1 record, and that looks great. But let's not forget, they required overtime to beat Baylor in a miraculous win there. They barely beat North Dakota State in week 1 of the season. I like the Kansas State side of things in this one. They are a 3.5-point favorite on the road.
The play fake, one-on-one down the sidelines. Caught! Flag! Touchdown, Brown!
I don't know how many of you guys watched that game. It was spectacular. I underrated Colorado. They were without their top two wide receivers in this one because early on in the game, they ended up losing Travis Hunter. He did not play in the second half. So that eliminates their number 1 receiver and number 1 corner. So both sides of the ball are affected. Their number 2 receiver, Jimmy Horn, was out for the second half as well. They still ended up having every opportunity to win that game. Shedeur Sanders rocks, dude. Yeah. That guy's just awesome. A really good quarterback. Avery Johnson was frustrating to watch at times. He has moments where it's amazing and other moments where it's like, dude, can you please complete a pass? K-State's good. They have some deficiencies. Colorado's better than I give them credit for.
Well, unfortunately for Shedeur, he's probably going to end up in Cleveland.
Oh.
Yeah, that would be
or
brutal.
Jacksonville.
All right, let's just be honest.
Jacksonville.
Deion's going to say he's not going to Cleveland. Cleveland will panic, and then they won't draft him. He'll go somewhere
Carolina's going to draft another one.
Colorado's decent, man. They're a better team than I gave them credit for. They don't have a running game. They cannot run the football, but
I think they're a solid, 8-9 win team. It wouldn't shock me if they're right around that range by the time we get to the end of the season.
I lose that one. 1-point play.
Oh,
bummer.
Sad.
It was a 3.5-point line. K-State won by 3. Directionally, I feel like I was all right.
If only you would have made it to 3-point play.
All right, last night was my final game of this slate. It was my 3-point play, and boy, did we have a nail biter on our hands.
Final pick of the week is going to Sunday Night Football. The Cincinnati Bengals looked like themselves last week. I think Cincinnati puts up 34-plus points against the New York Giants, and I don't think New York can keep up. They're only, surprisingly enough, a 3.5-point favorite in this one. Cincinnati big on the road at New York against the G-Men.
Inside run. They'll score more than 10. Chase Brown to the house.
for a Cincinnati touchdown.
That close, man.
Yeah, Chase, we got to
That
go
close.
down, my man.
That close, my man.
Chase Brown, we slide. We don't got to worry about the Giants driving down, attempting the field goal. Come on, you went to Illinois. Bielema taught you better than that.
Woo! That one had my heart racing a little bit. Didn't feel good about any of it. Bengals offense very much not back in that game.
Yeah.
Giants defense pretty good. Giants defense a little better than I gave them credit for. Bengals come away with a 10-point victory. I get the 3-point play. I end up 2-1 on the week with 5 points. So I'm at 5 points. T-Bone's at 7. Alex is at 10 through the first 2 weeks. We got a pretty good race here, boys. Pretty good race through the first couple of weeks of this the second month of the Pick'em Challenge.
I just need 5 more points and then just put BK in the cellar.
That's true.
5
That's
more
true.
points and there's no catching me.
Yeah,
Granted.
one more good week by you, and I'm in the struggle bus.
Weren't you in first place last time and
No, that
fell
was you.
off?
That was you.
Oh, well, I
was
still didn't
you.
get punished.
No,
He
but you-
collapsed in the final week or second
I
to
was
last
always
week.
at the bottom and I got to second and then I collapsed in that final
I
week.
will say, I think we've been better overall as a group this year picking games than we were a year
been
ago.
kind of a
now, some of that is
baseline.
because I have not been the worst sports bettor in the history of sports so far this year. Give it time.
Well,
Yeah,
some of that
last
is
year.
because you're using an illegal bookie
I
that's
think it
helping
was,
you this.
Yeah, I think last year I looked and he was hitting at like a 30% clip, which is
not
like,
what you want.
woo.
Well, he started off like 0 for the first 2 months.
Yeah.
All right, coming up next.
Yikes.
The St. Louis Blues are using Pavel Buchnevich in some ways that are super intriguing. We got to give some credit to head coach Drew Bannister. We'll do exactly that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here at the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Today, the Blues activated Brandon Saad from the paternity list and placed Alexander Texier on the injured reserve with an upper body injury, as the Blues will be back in action tomorrow as they have their home opener here in St. Louis against the Minnesota Wild. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5:30 with Alex Ferrario, and then puck drop at 6:30 with Joey Vitale and Chris Kerber. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet, Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So we got to give a little bit of credit, Alex. Credit where it's due to Drew Bannister. The St. Louis Blues head coach has been doing some really intriguing things with his utilization of Pavel Buchnevich. Now, I'm not talking about utilizing him as a second-line center. That I'm not a big fan of. None of us here on this show love utilizing Buch as the second-line center. That being said, I understand right now it is somewhat out of necessity. Alex, you said there's an update on the Blues injury-related?
Yeah, so JR out at skate today. Bannister said that Sundqvist has been cleared for contact, so he's day-to-day, but he said probably won't get in until next week. But Texier, who is skating after being placed on the injured list earlier today, is day-to-day and not far off playing. So the expectation, or less, I guess hope is the better word to use, is that Texier could potentially play Thursday and Oskar Sundqvist potentially returning Tuesday next week.
So you got the potential of having another center entering the conversation next week. And at that point, when Sonny returns, maybe you no longer have to use Buch as that second-line center. You could bump up Shin, second-line center, Foxa to be the third-line center, and then Sonny could be inserted into that fourth.
And I thought it was 10 days for injured reserve, but it's 7 days for injured reserve. Okay. So if you're retroactive from the 9th, which I guess it would have been after their first game, Texier will be available to come off of injured reserve on the 16th, so right before the Thursday game.
There you go. So you got the potential of getting some guys back into the lineup, which is great news. The reason I bring this up, there's a really good piece over in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch earlier today from Matthew DeFranks talking about how Drew Bannister is deploying Pavel Buchnevich. Some of this is, hey, we've got better bottom six forwards, and that means we don't have to use Buch on the PK anymore. He's only had, I think, one penalty kill opportunity for the Blues so far this season. That's not been the norm for him in St. Louis. Instead, what they're doing, they'll put the PK out there, and once they kill it, they put Buch, Thomas, and Kyrou onto the ice. Because now you've got an opportunity. They just used their best scoring options. The other team just used their best scoring options with their power play. You kill it off. You now bring on your best scoring options, and it's a mismatch. It should be your three best offensive contributors going up against bottom six forwards for the other team. Well, that's heavily in favor of you. Credit Drew Bannister. It's like platooning in Major League Baseball. If you've got a lefty on the mound and I now utilize my right-handed bat against him, I have won that matchup with the splits. That's what the Blues are doing right now with Buch. They're also, because he's on the second line, and this is something that we've talked about in the past with Jordan Kyrou, who's also on that line with Pavel Buchnevich, they're able to utilize him in offensive zone starts more often this year, so he's not getting hemmed into his own zone. He's able to get out there and get offensive start opportunities, which puts him into positions to succeed on that side of the ice. And he's staying away from the toughest matchups because he's the second line. You've got Thomas and his line going up against the toughest matchups every night, especially the other night against Vegas. Oh boy, is that top line good. Buch didn't have to worry about them. Neither did Jordan Kyrou. Less defensive responsibility for that as well. Alex, what do you think from that side of things? Forget which position he's playing, but the way they're using Buch in that second line this year, what do you think of what they're doing with that when it comes to Drew Bannister?
It's genius. One of the biggest areas that I used to emphasize with Craig Berube and why he was so good is he had a pulse for the game. He knew when to get a line out there, when to switch a line up, because it would capitalize on a mismatch that he saw in the middle of a hockey game. That 2019 run was a perfect example. He would move guys around late in games all the time, and that line would seem to capitalize. Bannister is reading the game properly. Like the Buchnevich, Thomas, and Kyrou, I can complain about it all I want, but you're only seeing small sample size of it. Like going back to that Seattle Kraken game when he said that he was trying to utilize that. They played a 2 minutes and 12 seconds together and had one high-danger scoring chance. He's using it in small spurts, but those small spurts are jumping over the boards fast enough when another team is hemmed in their own zone. It's like one of those quick line changes when you've got possession and you could get your best players out there, and then the other team's like, oh, crap, now what? And now you're stuck in the cycle mode. That's a really genius move by Drew Bannister, and now you're coming back on home ice to really capitalize on that. You were doing it on the road where you get the last change. Now you can really capitalize on it. But the way that he's playing Buchnevich and Kyrou in that line, whether it's been Bolduc or Texier, again, bigger picture, I don't like it. But if you go small sample size in the game action, that's what you want to do. You want to find the line that other teams don't know how to handle it. And it's so important to find a secondary line that can be dangerous offensively, because what happens with Buch and Kyrou is if Thomas's line isn't producing any offense, well, now they use their best defensive line and circle Buch and Kyrou and say, we just got to shut this line down, and then if we do, we'll be good to go. That's where that secondary line comes into play. It's why it's so important to find a winger who can perform with Robert Thomas. But, man, if you have Thomas as your shutdown line and they're able to eliminate the other team's best options offensively, well, now you're going to throw your best line out there offensively and capitalize on those chances. So it's smart. Buchnevich really didn't get a whole lot of offense in those first 2 games. You finally felt like you saw it pan out against Vegas, and now you just have to continue with it, which is why they're keeping the Bolduc and Buchnevich and Kyrou together. It worked in Vegas. Can you build off of the chemistry from that game?
Yep. It's going to be interesting to see how they utilize this moving forward and see kind of where Buchnevich ultimately falls. He feels like the queen on the chessboard, where he can do anything. Like you can use him in a million different ways, and it's just a matter of what do you want to do with him? And as a coach, it's up to you to get the most out of Pavel Buchnevich. That's ultimately who it comes down to. And so far this year, I don't like him as a center. I don't think that's where he should be long term. But some of the other stuff that they're doing is encouraging, and it suggests to me that maybe they're not going to land on him as a center long term, and this is out of necessity, not out of them like wanting this to work. And whenever they do get Oscar Sundqvist back, maybe that's when they decide to make the move. Today, the line's also encouraging. Brandon Saad on the top line. You end up having Braden Shin kick back down to that third line center position. I think that's a much better use of those guys as well. We're starting to head in the right direction. And as they get more and more of these guys healthy, we'll see where see what Drew Bannister ends up using, how he ends up using his lineup. All right, coming up in about 10 minutes or so, the Cardinals lineup is both extremely far from these playoff teams and also probably a little closer than what you might expect. We'll tell you how coming up in 10 minutes. The Junk Drawer is next here on 101 ESPN. He's Alex with T-Bone on BK. Let's dive into the junk drawer. T-Bone, what do you got for us today?
Guys, you know how they say everything's bigger in Texas?
Yes, sir.
True.
So I saw this the other day. A Houston area high school, Willis ISD, which is a public high school, has 2,800 students, which is in 6A for their high school. How they
that's
describe
a
things.
huge school.
That's 1,000 more than the biggest high school in the state of Missouri.
Yeah, I think we graduated with 500 in our class. So
In
we
high
had,
school? Yeah, I think
You were a huge.
I was. I
school,
think I
too.
had close to 1,000, but it was a public high school.
Yeah.
So the reason I bring that up is because this high school in Houston has proposed a $68 million high school football stadium that it wants to build. And also up for vote that they're trying to get passed is a $27 million indoor field house and a $19 million aquatic center.
So 20. So what were those?
$68 million,
Okay.
$27 million, and a $19 million aquatic center.
So $104 million.
Somewhere in that range, yeah.
Well, it's Texas.
Everything's bigger.
I mean, look, the $68 million for a football stadium, that that will go through.
$14 million.
$14 million. Yeah, that will go through. I can't imagine.
Zoos.
I can't imagine
$50 million.
going to a superintendent and asking for what was the pool? $20 million?
$19 million.
And calling it an aquatic center. We'd like to build a $20 million aquatic center. So you want a pool?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Board of Curators at the University of Missouri approved a $250 million project for a transformative renovation of Memorial Stadium. Mizzou's transformation of its stadium is $250 million, which is roughly double what they're asking for a high school football
Which is
facility.
insane. Now, granted, if you've ever driven around Texas, like we did
dude.
the family vacation in Texas like 3 years ago, there are some stadiums like you drive by and you're like, oh, I wonder what college plays there. And then you like drive by, you get a little bit around the corner and you go, wait, that says high school.
Dude, I had a job opportunity out of college in Denison, Texas, like to work as a television reporter. And they explained, like I knew high school football was a big deal in Texas. They explained how many high schools were in the vicinity of Denison, Texas. Like Denison, Texas had like a population of maybe 1,100. And they were like, Friday nights from about 2 o'clock in the afternoon until about 2 o'clock in the morning, you'll be covering 16 different high schools, college football. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Here are a few of the stadiums. Cy-Fair ISD, is that this one?
No, this is Willis ISD.
Okay. I don't know if it's the same area, but maybe. 11,000 is their capacity. It's an $80 million football stadium. Legacy Stadium in Katy, 12,000 capacity, $70 million. McKinney Stadium, $70 million, 12,000 capacity. In Allen, they have two different stadiums, but one, 18,000 capacity. It was a $60 million stadium when it opened up in 2012.
Dang.
Conroe, 10,000. Prosper, 12,000. Beaumont, 10,000. Like, there are a dozen different stadiums in the state of Texas that have at least 10,000 in terms of their attendance. Now, for context, Alex, what is the enterprise capacity?
17,500?
There's a stadium in Allen, Texas, right outside of Dallas, which has a bigger capacity for high school football than Enterprise Center does for St. Louis Blues games.
What's wild about it is I think a lot of those places fill up too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. City Park is 22,000, so it's just a little smaller than going to a City Park game.
Yeah.
To give that another little bit of context.
Man, wow.
Unbelievable, dude.
I want to go to one of
to,
those.
I was about to say, I would
Yeah.
love to go to an Allen, Texas, like a big high school game in
Big
the
time
state of
football game.
Texas.
Not
Oh,
one
yeah.
where they like kill some small school they bring in.
No,
But
like a high school football playoff game
Yeah.
at their stadium. That would be amazing. Absolutely amazing.
that'd be
All right.
awesome.
He's T-Bone, that's Alex. I'm BK. Coming up next, the Cardinals aren't in the playoffs, but there are still 4 teams that are. How does the Cardinals lineup compare to those that still remain? We'll talk about it. You might be a little bit surprised on the good end and disappointed by the bad. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you and talking about my insurance agent, Tracy Bibb, her and her team over at Allstate, taking care of you and your family when it comes to your home and when it comes to your auto insurance. And most important with all this is making sure that they're saving you money. It's because Allstate has the most competitive rates. Tracy is always working to make sure that you're saving money with your car and your auto insurance. Plus the customer service. You've heard me tell stories in the past, whether it was a tree branch falling on my shed in the backyard or a fender bender on the side of the road. When something like that happens, and they preach all the time, it's not a matter of if, it's always about when something happens. You want to make sure that your insurance agent is available for you, and Tracy always is, always in contact with you. And when something pops up, you call her. She's able to take care of it for you that instant. Give her a call today and tell her you heard me talk about it on 101 ESPN, and Tracy will walk you through the entire process. Free, non-committal quote, super simple. She'll even cancel your insurance for you. 314-328-4260, 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bib.
So you know this as well as anybody. The Cardinals' offense wasn't very good this year. That being said, they might be a little closer to some of these playoff teams that are still remaining than you would otherwise expect. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, Alex, I did a little bit of a deep dive over the weekend.
Ruh-roh.
And how the Cardinals' offense compares to the offenses, the lineups that still remain. So I looked at the lineups that were still playing and what their final lineup was for the LCS, okay? So you got the Guardians, the Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Mets. I'm not going to go through them one by one because that's 36 different players. We don't need to do that. But I had a few different takeaways. One, no surprise here, tale as old as time. They all had at least two superstars in their lineup, at least based on production. Like, you may not view Steven Kwan as a superstar. He produced like one this year. You may not view, I don't know, Vientos for the New York Mets as a superstar. He produced like one this year. So they all had at least two guys in the middle of their order that were like 30% above league average offensively. The Cardinals had one this year, and it was Wilson Contreras. They're lacking another guy, and I don't think you can necessarily expect Wilson Contreras to produce at that level again going into next year or beyond. He may not even be here beyond the upcoming season.
Say, well, great sell on us trading them.
Yeah, well, I'm out.
They also, for the most part, these four teams that remain, Guardians, Dodgers, Yankees, and Mets, they avoid having black holes in the middle or at any point in their lineup. The worst players that are in their lineup are like most of the time 10% below league average offensively. Like, they're almost all league average hitters with a couple of superstars that can carry them at any given time, right? This was the formula that I thought that the Cardinals would have coming into the season, where you'd have Contreras and Goldie and Arenado that can carry you, and then you've got like 7 other guys that are at least league average or better. And over the course of the season, they'll have moments where they look amazing and other moments where they get a little bit cold. But because you have so many of them, it ends up where you never have those long stretches of time where you really struggle to score offensively. That didn't happen, in part because they didn't have the two guys that keep you afloat at all times, with Goldie and Arenado producing the way that we expected. My biggest thing, though, I think the Cardinals have that. The guys that can level you out pretty well, I think they've got a bunch of league average hitters. I mean, look just at this season, the way that they were able to produce offensively. Mason Wynn, already a league average hitter. Brendan Donovan, above league average offensively. Newt, Burleson, Herrera. I think Walker will be that. I think Gorman will be that. You've got the league average plus guys in your lineup right now. What you're missing is those two dudes in the middle of your order. And I don't know how you acquire them. This goes back to the conversation that we've been having for a really long time. I thought they had it with Goldie and Arenado, and then, this year happened. Alex, what is your takeaway when you see kind of how these lineups are constructed and you compare it to where the Cardinals are at right now as they head into this retool, rebuild, whatever you want to call it, youth movement? What's your takeaway?
That the Cardinals are far off. And I know what you're saying with you've got those baseline guys that can keep you in games competitive, the Wins, the Donovans, and I agree with that. The reason why I believe you're so far off is because you don't just go out there and get those superstars. You don't go out there and, at least the Cardinals don't go out there and sign one via free agency like Juan Soto, who's going to be available this offseason. And if you make a trade for one, i.e. the Vladimir Guerrero Jr., if they decided to go that route, well, now you're trading away from that baseline of players that are complementary pieces that can keep you afloat. The Cardinals are in such a tough spot, and why it's so far off is you have to draft and develop this. And that is a near impossible task for any team in baseball. And on top of that, you have to do it fast, which is why the pressure feels like it's on a Walker and Gorman, because you want to capitalize on the competitive players that you have on cheap contracts, like the Donovans, like the Mason Wynns. So I see all of these teams, and I'm with you. I watch the Cleveland Guardians, and I see the New York Mets, and I'm like, yeah, the Cardinals have these guys. Like, they've got the Mason Wynns, who has shown you the ability to come up in a big moment. Brendan Donovan can do that. The pitching, we've already discussed how it can keep you competitive. The problem is the Cardinals have to do something they've never done and go after the Francisco Lindors, who's in the prime or close to his prime of his career. Yeah. They have to go out there and trade for a Juan Soto or sign a guy like a Shohei Ohtani in the offseason. And until you do that, you got to develop it. And I don't buy any team can do that.
See, I think they can. I think they've shown an ability to. Like, they went out and traded for Marcell Ozuna. It didn't work here, but we've seen they targeted the right guy. It was just the wrong timing. He was not healthy when he was here in St. Louis, and now that he is, They targeted a guy that went on to have multiple seasons where he was in MVP consideration. You look at what they ended up acquiring, Paul Goldschmidt, multiple seasons where he's in MVP conversation. Nolan Arenado, it fell off a cliff quicker than any of us could have expected, but they targeted a guy who in 2022 was in MVP consideration. So they've targeted some guys that are in this conversation. I think they need to target them earlier in their careers.
I was just going to say, the problem is they target them to get 2 years of the greatness.
Ozuna was that guy. They didn't have the DH at the time. He wasn't healthy, and there was some off-field stuff that he wasn't the guy that they wanted to keep around long-term anyways.
And tell me if you're in the same line of thinking with this. I always felt like Ozuna he seemed like he was that guy, but then when you didn't see the success and when he got the success in Atlanta, it was always he's the Robin to the Batman.
I think he could be a Batman. I think he's that good offensively. I mean, you look at what he's been since he's been in Atlanta. Now, there was, again, injury-related issues, but in 2021, he fell off a cliff. Over the last couple of years, he's been 40% above league average. In 2020, shortened season, all of the disclaimers there, but in 60 games, hit 18 home runs, was 75% above league average. Like, he was, for 60 games, what like Shohei Ohtani was this year for 162. Again, you can't do that. That could have been just a hot streak, and maybe he would have fell on a cliff down the stretch, but he was amazing that year. I think what we've seen is that Ozuna was that dude, and he could have been the middle of the order bat that the Cardinals are now lacking. It just didn't happen when they needed it to while he was here in St. Louis, and it took him a while to really get back on track with his health.
And all those other guys, it's just the Cardinals always try and go after guys that's maybe got 2 to 3 years in the tank, and then after that it goes to E pretty quick, and you try and capitalize in a small window, whereas you see the Lindors, you see the Juan Sotos, the Bryce Harper, the Manny Machado, man, you're going with something that's got a 8 to 10 year tank for you.
I would be curious. How do you guys feel about this? If they end up trading this offseason, Ryan Helsley, how would you feel about them getting a return that's just a lottery ticket, high upside prospect? Instead of getting something that's closer to the big leagues, because this is a conversation that I would imagine they're going to be talking a lot about going into this offseason. What do we target when we make these trades? When we trade a Wilson Contreras, some of these guys that are on our big league roster, what do we want in return? Because typically, when you trade for guys that are close, it's more in the vein of like a Kloffenstein or Robersa. Those guys that are, okay, well, they could be back-end starters. And most of what they got last year at the deadline was that. Drew Rom, right? Those kind of guys that they're fringy. They're like 5th, 6th starters. Maybe they become long relievers, but they never really have any upside to them. Or you can trade for guys that are further away and may never make it to the big leagues, or have the upside to become real significant additions 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road. What do you prefer that the Cardinals look to acquire this offseason?
If you were to ask me that question 2 years ago, where I was feeling like this team was still in a competitive window, I would want the guy that's certainty. He's close to the league. But where you're at right now as an organization, I would say you got to go upside. You got to go with somebody that is a wild card and could blow up in your face, but it's also somebody that, if it hits, looks like a superstar. I know it's only one short season sample, but look at the Acuna kid that was acquired by the Mets. He was far away from being a major leaguer, and then they traded Max Scherzer for it, and it's like, cool, we'll go upside here. And now you got a 22-year-old who's looked good at the end of the regular season for the Mets and in the postseason. So I would go wild card, because I think what you need right now as a Cardinals team is that high upside player.
Yeah, I think in the Helsley trade, more specifically, that's the one where I would probably shoot for upside. I would shoot for, if it's like a low-A bat or pitch or whatever you want it to be.
Guy that has some metrics that you're like, hey, you can build around this. Let's see what we've got here.
We think with our minor league system, and we're adding instructors, that we can bring him in and we can maximize him and get him to become, whether it's a star, even like a number 3, like worst case scenario, he just becomes like a number 3 or number 6 hole hitter for you. I think you shoot for upside in the Helsley trade. I think at the position you're at, where you're in this refresh, I think you're looking to look for upside plays, and you're more building not for the next year to 3, but more for 3 to 5 years down the line.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. That's Alex Ferrario, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Do you guys have currently a take on what you think we're going to see in these LCS? We saw game 1, Dodgers just took it to the Mets. It's probably going to look a little bit different tonight when they've got a bullpen game going, as opposed to them having their number 1 starter on the mound. I would assume Sean Manaea will be getting the start in this one for the Mets. Guardians, Yankees, the ALCS starts tonight with Alex Cobb getting the game 1 start for the Guardians.
Ace.
Going up against Carlos Rodon, a bit of a pitching matchup, mismatch, I would say. Oh. Do you guys have a take on how you think these 2 series are going to go?
I think it's going to be Yankees-Dodgers. I think the Cinderella...
That'd be a lot of fun, man.
I think the Cinderella story that was the Mets fizzles out in this series. I know that the Dodgers don't technically have pitching, but it just feels like that offense is not going to continue the devil magic they've been pulling off all the way up to this point. And I look at that Guardians-Yankees... I mean, Detroit barely beat Cleveland, and I understand Cleveland came out on top, but I'm not going to give you the same chance against a Yankees team that you're going to have to find a way to navigate through Soto, Judge, and Giancarlo Stanton.
I think the Yankees are going to win this one in 5. I don't see any scenario for the Guardians. They don't have the starting pitching, and they don't have a deep enough offense to be able to overcome what the Yankees have to offer. I think the Yankees will win that series. I think the Dodgers will win. I think the Mets will get a game or 2, and it'll be interesting because of the lack of depth. I know that sounds strange to say, given the fact that the Dodgers have one of the longest scoreless streaks for their pitching in Major League history. I think the Mets have been kind of piecing this thing together with a lot of batted ball luck. That's not a shot against them. Hey, it's the postseason. You'll live with it. But I think the Dodgers and the Yankees are both just the better teams that remain. I thought the Padres were the best team in the tournament. Mm-hmm. They collapsed. Their offense fell apart, and now the Dodgers are here. Whoever won that series, I was going to pick to win this respective series, and probably to win the World Series.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Dodgers win this one in 6 against the New York Mets, and I think it's going to be 6 for the Yankees. And then when you get to the World Series, I think the Yankees, because they seem to have a starting pitching edge, I think that's where you're going to see the separator. And I don't know if the Dodgers can continue to go back-to-back 7-game series and going, hey, we've got 2 starters, hey, and then 2 bullpen games.
This is where you start to see it show up. The 7-game series is where it starts to resemble more what baseball is supposed to be over a long stretch of time. Now it starts, if you don't have the depth this is where it starts to really show
And that's
up in
why,
a
like,
significant way.
no, I said Yankees in 6. It would not shock me if the Mets win this series because they can. Now they're not great, but they can roll out 3 starters. They can go Quintana, they can go Manaea, they can go Severino, and then I don't
The
know what
Dodgers
they would do for the
literally
4th.
can't.
No, they can't. They can only go 2, and then it's like, well,
Until Shohei Ohtani.
Shrug emoji.
Until Shohei Ohtani starts that next game.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. In or out coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. Seems odd to be talking about because you already know about it, but you need to know that you need to get out there right now. Because, look, the weather's cool enough. That doesn't mean you have to stop getting that famous frozen custard. Whatever flavors you're looking for, if you're in the fall mood, well, it's time to get on out there right now and check out their great pumpkin. It's a slice of pumpkin pie mixed with Ted's delicious vanilla custard and topped with whipped cream. Maybe that's not your flavor. Well, guess what? They have tons of flavors that you can mix and match whatever you prefer. My daughter likes doing marshmallows with Oreos. My middle daughter loves doing Oreos with cookie dough. So you do whatever you want at Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It's the best part about it. Plus the family traditions that's been going on there for 95 years. It's been going on since 1929, a St. Louis tradition that you need to make a tradition in your family. Get on out there off of Chippewa. While you're out there, walk across the parking lot, check out their gift shop where you can buy Ted Drew's t-shirts, you can buy Ted Drew's hats, souvenir, gift cards for those gifts that you need to get somebody right now. You could get it all over at their Ted Drew's gift shop off of Chippewa. Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out here on BK and Ferrario. Let's start out with this one, guys. In or out. There will be a team in this year's college football playoff that is currently ranked outside of the top 15. So 16 or below. There will be a team in this year's college football playoff that is currently ranked 16 or below. In or out.
And it's just in the college football playoffs.
Somewhere in that 12. I think there will. I'm in. I think there will be somebody that is outside of the top 15. So we're talking Indiana, K-State, Ole Miss, Mizzou, Illinois.
Why'd you laugh when you said that?
So you should have laughed at Mizzou, too.
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
I'll say in with you because I don't think Notre Dame's going to stay in there.
It's crazy, right? Because you're like,
yeah,
I have no confidence in any of these teams ranked like 6 through 15. But do I really think somebody on the outside is going to find their way in? I think my answer is yes.
I know. I just looked at Miami of Florida and Iowa State, and I'm like, oh, bleep, they're 6-0.
Yeah, dude.
I don't believe in anybody beyond the top 3.
Iowa State's defense is legit. They're a really good team.
Yeah, I think I'll say in. Because I think you'll see a team, I can't believe I'm saying this, I think Pitt could be a playoff team.
How about Indiana?
I'm
Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, Purdue. They have 2 games remaining that are huge. One against Michigan, one against Ohio State. The one against Michigan is at home. They could go 11-1. That probably gets you in.
It's possible. And the reason I did the Pitt one is because I look at their schedule. ACC is not very good. The only two tough opponents they have left, they're at number 21 SMU, and then they've got Clemson, but they've got the 10th ranked Clemson Tigers at home.
Yep.
Outside of that, they've got Boston College, Louisville, who's fun and feisty, then Virginia and Syracuse. I could see where Pitt ends up with maybe 1-2 losses there, and they end up finding their way in. I mean, we all know the real answers. Well, it's possible.
I mean, they've got Notre Dame. And other than that, it's just the last game against Navy. That Army-Navy game might be for a playoff spot.
And the funny thing is, it's also going to be for a spot probably in their conference title game.
That'd be amazing.
So imagine that.
That'd be a lot of fun. And it's the only show on town that weekend.
Yeah. That plays into what my in or out was going to be.
Navy plays Notre Dame as well. Notre Dame.
What are they doing?
Interesting scheduling here, boys.
Come on, Notre Dame.
That played into my in or out.
Notre Dame plays Georgia Tech, Navy, and Army. 3 option teams down the stretch.
Georgia Tech don't run the option no more.
Well, close enough. They run the ball.
Guys, my in or out tied into this.
Come on, dude.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because mine tied into this. In or out, we will see the group of 5 team that makes the college football playoff win in the first round.
Oh, that's fun.
Because that could be Boise State. Could be Army or Navy.
Dude, all of the Boise State talking about this running back has just been wild on social media. I know. What's he got? Is he on pace for 38 touchdowns? I thought
he currently, through the first 6 games of the regular season, has 1,200 rushing yards and 17 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think he was on pace to break the single season record at 38. Dude. All I see are just pictures of this guy. I haven't watched one Boise State game, but now I want to.
He's every bit as good as you think.
He's the whole reason they nearly beat, who was it, Oregon? I think they went on the road to Oregon.
They gave him a massive NIL deal. I think it was like $1 million or something.
Now I just want to watch Boise State games to see what this kid is made of.
Yeah,
he's amazing. He'll be a top 20 pick in the draft.
Yeah. I'll say in on this because I think there's a chance that if Boise State is the team, now they got to avoid any slip-ups along the way. Boise State makes a playoff, man, they're going to push whoever that number 5 team is because, again, there's only 3 teams that I think have no significant holes on their roster. Everybody else does, and I could see where if they get the right matchup, Boise State could win at least a playoff team.
If they've got the dude that can carry them.
I was just going to say. Yeah, I'll say in on this as well because college football is so wide open. I could see something like that.
To answer the question directly, I'm also in. I think they will find a way.
Guys, in or out, the Blues wrap up this 4-game homestand with points in 3 of the 4 games. Ooh. So you got the Minnesota Wild, the New York Islanders, Carolina Hurricanes, and Winnipeg Jets.
I'm going to say out. I'm not hating, I promise. Just tough stretch, man. They've got a really tough stretch of their schedule coming up in their next 5. Minnesota, New York, Carolina, Winnipeg as the home games, and then on the road at Toronto. It's not an easy stretch. If you go 3-2 in that stretch, you feel pretty good about it.
And what was your requirement again?
Points in 3 of the 4 home games.
I'm going to say out. I think they'll probably do 2 of 4.
I agree.
I think with their lack of 5-on-5 offense, I think it's going to make it tough against some of these quote-unquote contending teams, if you will. So I think it'll probably be 2 of 4 is what I think will be realistic for them.
I think it'd be great. I would love to see it.
I think 3 of 4. I think the Islanders, the Hurricanes, and the Wild games, they have the Winnipeg Jets one is going to be the interesting one because that's been the Blues' kryptonite for the last 2 years. I'm saying in, though. I think you get 3 out of the 4 with points.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out here on BK and Ferrario. Let's start out with this from the 636. In or out, the Washington Commanders will win the division and make it to the NFC Conference Championship game. Ooh. Commanders win the NFC East and get to the NFC Championship game.
I think they win the NFC East. Getting to the NFC Championship game, man, that's going to be tough. I'm going to say out just because of that NFC Championship because, man, we talked about, I think there are 3 teams in the NFC North that are better than the Commanders. When the 49ers are healthy, I do think they're going to be a better team. And then right now, I kind of wonder, do we get to see a Buccaneers versus Commanders game at all this season?
Let's check the schedules.
Because
let's go to ESPN.com.
I'd like to see a Buccaneers versus Commanders.
We saw that week 1.
Did we?
And the Bucs won.
Yeah. That was kind of played into my... I don't remember it. Surprise, surprise. But I think the Buccaneers are going to be a tough playoff team. So I'll say out.
Yeah, I'll say out as well. I think the NFC is a... I can't believe I'm saying this. It feels like it's more... I don't know if it's as deep as the AFC, but it is more open. And because everybody like Tampa Bay, I could see winning a playoff game. If Atlanta makes the playoffs, I can see them winning a playoff game. I still think they're the top 2 teams, and it's going to be tough to sell this since they're below 500, are still Detroit and San Francisco. And I don't think Washington will ultimately be able to beat them, so I'm out on this, but I do think they win the East.
In or out from the 636, Mizzou will go 11-1 and get left out of the playoff.
Oh.
If they go 11-1, they will be in the playoff.
Yeah, that I agree with.
I think Mizzou could have, given the way the season's gone, I think they can have 2 losses, depending on what the losses are, and get into the playoffs still. But the loss would have to be close, and it would have to come against either Oklahoma or Alabama. Most likely Alabama. I don't think you can get in with 3 losses this year.
Agree.
But I think 2 in the SEC this year probably gets you in because everybody's going to have losses.
But if Oklahoma... If they're going to be a top 25 by the time you play them?
No. I don't know. Probably not.
And then if you lose to Alabama, you don't have a top 25 win.
Yeah.
Boston College.
Arkansas could be. South
Boston
Carolina
College,
could be. I don't think Boston is anymore, though.
Yeah.
No, they're
so
not
it won't be considered a top 25 win at that point.
I'm going to say out.
If you do this in the SEC, though, I think if you lose 2 games, I think you're in.
I know the SEC is really trying to bully the committee into that, but I say out to the scenario. I think with 1 loss, they're definitely in because that means they got to win on the road at Bama. I don't know with 2 losses because their schedule is so favorable compared to other SEC opponents to where I could see where the committee looks at that.
Like, the best thing that could happen for them on that point is Texas A&M running the table. Yeah. They need Texas A&M to run the table for this to look even better. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, they lost to what ended up becoming a buzzsaw, and the rest of the way they pretty much took care of business.
Yeah, that's probably their best case scenario. Yeah. But I think 2 losses, they're going to miss the playoff.
In or out, the Blues will have at least 2 30-goal scorers this year.
I'll say
Alex
in.
has 6, so we know he's in.
I don't think I had 6. I think I had 4.
Still a lot.
I'll say in. I don't know who it's. Kyra's going to be one of them.
Yeah.
And then pick your poison, whether it's. I think Neighbors is going to get on an offensive surge, and he'll run through it for a little bit. Thomas will get there, and if they finally put Booch at the wing, he'll get there. So I'll say in.
I think I'm in as well, and I think it'll be Booch and Kyra. I think Booch and Kyra will both get to 30, but I think it'll be like right around 30. I like the way that they're playing them on the second line. I think it opens up for better matchups, more offensive contributions. The way they're, I'll say 30 each.
I'm going to say out. I think the only 30-goal scorer you have is Kyrou. I don't know if you have another one.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll put a bow on this thing with the BK and Ferrario Rewind. But coming up next, we're getting back into college football. The biggest game of the weekend lived up to all of the hype. You guys falling for what we're seeing right now with the expanded conferences, the expanded playoff? Is T-Bone coming around? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley for our friends at Circa Sports in Illinois. Alex, when we bet, we're going to win the most money possible, and the only way we can do that is by betting with Circa Sports in Illinois. For baseball action, NLCS, ALCS, I like the Mets and the Yankees, the two New York teams, to win straight up on the money line tonight. If you bet $100 over on Circa, you're winning $265 when you parlay those two together. When you do the exact same bet over on FanDuel, you're winning $10 less. A $100 bet wins you $255. This is why we bet with Circa. You're going to win the most money possible. They've got those tight money line splits. Sports betting is hard. It's not easy to win. So when I win, I want to win my money.
Well, and you want to be with somebody who's fully transparent about it. And when you're using Circa Sports Illinois, they're telling you to go check out other sports betting apps because they know those tight money line splits. They know that they're not keeping a lot of money on the large market bets. They know you're going to come back to Circa Sports Illinois. So use them with confidence. Make all your big parlays with Circa Sports Illinois. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Terry Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Today, the St. Louis Blues activated Brandon Saad from the paternity list and placed Alexander Texier on IR with an upper body injury. And the Blues will be back in action tomorrow night as they've got their home opener against the Minnesota Wild. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5:30 with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 6:30 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Third and 20. Howard, a lot of time coming off. Howard's going to run for it. Time runs out, and that'll do it. Oh, my goodness. Welcome to the Big Ten, Oregon. They storm the field at Autzen, and the Ducks win this bout 32-31.
Now, I probably won't feel this way when, like, the women's basketball team is traveling from Oregon to Pennsylvania in the middle of December. Maybe I won't feel this way when the rowing team for Stanford is not participating.
Where are you going with this, man?
I love the additions that the Big Ten has made. I love it. It's been amazing for the football season. As a neutral observer, it just wants to sit on my couch every Saturday and bet on football and watch from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. while being an absentee father. It's really excellent to see some of the matchups that we've been able to witness because of the expansion of the Big Ten and the expansion of the SEC. Dude, Texas versus Georgia is going to be amazing. That's going to be so much fun to watch. Being able to witness this weekend, Oregon versus Ohio State, one of the best games of the year, and it lived up to all of the hype, just as Alabama versus Georgia did earlier this season. These massive haymaker games have been awesome. USC losing against Minnesota, that's pretty cool. Hey, USC, welcome to traveling to the Midwest in October. Like, good luck.
It ain't fun. At least you got October.
They're not going to enjoy that at all. They're going to go out to, let's see here, what is their schedule looks. They've got Washington. They've got Maryland this weekend. They don't have any of like the real nasty games.
They don't got like Illinois, who at the end of the season goes to Northwestern, who's playing right on the lake.
Exactly. That's what I was looking for. Is like, do you have Wisconsin?
Minnesota in the middle of
Which
November.
One of these games? That would have been even better. But they'll get those. Give it time. Over the next few years, they will. Alex, I want to get your thoughts on this. But between the expansion of the conferences and it not really making sense geographically, which was weird to me at first as well, it took me a bit of getting used to, and now I'm here. I'm all in. And the expansion of the playoff as well. T-Bone hated all of it.
Oh, so much.
Could not have hated it anymore. T-Bone, we've now seen half of the season played in college football. Are you opening up to this? Is it starting to win you over?
No.
All right.
I first off, I still don't like the conferences. I hate seeing like the USC playing Penn State, the Oregon versus Ohio State. Bring me back the Pac-12. The Pac-12 still should be in existence, and all that was money hungry teams. So that one still irks me a little bit.
That's fair.
I still liked the old model of, hey, the one loss can be your elimination factor. I loved that about college football.
It wouldn't have been this year.
It was, well, yeah, this year it may not have been. But
Ohio State is currently ranked 4th with a loss.
yeah. But I love the fact that what made college football so different was even in games which, your guys' argument is totally fair of like teams like Missouri with 1 loss or Tennessee with 1 loss, like they still have a shot with 2 losses. I mean, we just talked about in or out. Mizzou, can they make the playoff with 2 losses? That's fair, but there were always still rivalry games that made college football great, no matter what the win-losses were. Like, think of the Iron Bowl over years.
Still exists.
It does still exist, but
you didn't lose that because of this.
I still miss
just because you don't like it.
When a team loses, like when Georgia Clemson goes up, they're like on the verge of elimination already. I still like that because it's what made college football unique. No other sport in North America has that factor. College basketball doesn't have that. I mean, hell, the regular season college basketball is basically pointless. Football was the one where it was, hey, 1 loss and you're probably done. It's what made it so special. And look, I get it. It made it to where, it's only the same 10 programs. If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And that's what I loved about it. And that's why, like, Illinois, don't get me wrong, I'm excited. They have a chance to potentially be in the playoff. I still like the old formula. There it was, okay, you have 1 loss, you're potentially out.
You're alive right now, dude. Like,
yeah, but
you're going to a
alive.
game this weekend, T-Bone. You're going to a game this weekend for Illinois versus Michigan. It's a 1-point line right now in Vegas. It's basically a pick 'em.
Freaking Michigan. What the hell is
Honestly,
that?
I get it. Did you see their last game?
They were off last week.
You have
Illinois.
if you win this game this weekend, your team has a real chance to make the college football playoff. Like a real chance. That's awesome. And you lost already. So in a previous iteration of the format, you'd probably be eliminated because you're Illinois. Now, Georgia can get away with a loss. Alabama can get away with a loss. That's where the preseason rankings do matter. People say they don't. They do because it sets expectations and it's easier for you to make up one of those losses than it is for a team like Illinois that started outside of the top 25 and had to work their way back in, right? Hell, even for Mizzou, it's easier for Mizzou to make up for what was an embarrassing loss than it would be for Illinois because of where they started, because that's the priors and those are playing into things. Illinois is very much alive right now. Missouri's very much alive right now. If you're a fan of like Vanderbilt's, probably not super alive, but technically alive right now. That's awesome. It should include more fan bases. It should get more fans feeling like they're a part of this thing deeper into the season. There's more games that matter. Like this weekend, if you're a Boise State fan, your game matters. If you're an Indiana fan, now you're undefeated, so it would have mattered anyways. But it really matters now because the rest of the way, you probably have 1 gimme. You have 1 mulligan the rest of the way, and every other game you got to win. Ole Miss, dude, you're done. You're out of your mulligans. Now, every game the rest of the way, you have to win out, or you're done. And that makes it so much fun. Like, Ole Miss now has to beat Georgia. They have got to beat Georgia at home. It's a must-win game. And they've got to beat Oklahoma and Arkansas on the road before they get to that Georgia game to make that Georgia game matter. So all of that emphasis on those individual games, it's still there. Not to the same degree. I can see that point, T-Bone. But it makes more games matter, even if some of the top games don't matter quite as much as they once did. And I got to tell you, watching that Oregon-Ohio State game on Saturday, it changed nothing for me. I was every bit as much on the edge of my seat watching that game because it was just an excellent college football game played at the highest of levels between two teams that I truly believe will see each other once again at some point before the season's over.
It forces you to be perfect when you have a slip up. And what the old format was you basically had to be perfect if you wanted to be in the college football playoff conversation, because like we just talked about, the ones that slip up are the ones that still find ways to get in, the Georgias, the Alabamas. But if you're another team that's perfect and slip up once, you have a bad game, well, now your season's done for and you're talking bowl season. I don't think there's any changing T-Bone's mindset. He's in that nostalgia realm. And I mean, I can't blame it. We're all nostalgic about something, and T-Bone likes his old school college football.
The funny thing is, like, T-Bone, prior to you being born, we just like randomly selected who the national champion was.
Well, I'm not admitting that was smart. That was pretty stupid. But
we would play bowl games and be like, yeah, that team's number one. And there were literally years where there was a split champion. That is a thing that happened within the last 25 years. Alex and I were alive when they're like, split it between USC and I guess Utah, because they went undefeated with Alex Smith as well. Cool.
Literally
those
and
are the two
figuratively.
champions.
I was alive.
It's crazy.
I personally like it this way because every week it creates entertainment, because now when you've seen those mulligans for teams, they're forced to be perfect, and there is intrigue, and the intrigue carries over until the end of the season, because some matchups, if a team had already lost one game, they're done, and it's not as exciting for you. So I like it this way, but again, I think there's a lot of people probably on T-Bone's side that prefers it to where it was the old school way.
I think by the end of the year, we might be able to get T-Bone on our side.
well, if Illinois makes a playoff, man.
Yeah, T-Bone will be like,
But
yeah.
I don't think they're going to make it. I think they're going to end up losing 3 games.
I don't think so
3
either.
or 4.
But I think one of your other fears is that we're going to get blowouts in the postseason because it expanded. And I think this is the year that we need it.
I will also say it's tough for me to wrap my head around the potential of a 2/3 loss team in the playoff. We'll see. I don't know if we'll get to 3, but it's still hard for me to wrap my head around, okay, these 2 loss teams get to come into the college football playoff. Because that's just not how I've always viewed college football.
We had that in the past, though.
Not a 2-loss team.
I think we have. I'll have to look back.
I'm pretty sure it's only been a 1-loss team has ever made the college football playoff when it was a 4-team format. And then, of course, I mean, to your guys' point, when they were doing you're in the championship. I think you only had ever like a 1-loss team. And it's just hard for me to wrap around just because of how college football has operated in my life of, Missouri, they lost 2 games and then didn't beat another top 25 team. Yeah, playoffs. And I'm just like, I don't know if I want that. I just don't like that idea.
No 2-loss team.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
And that's just hard for me to wrap my head around of, they had 2 mulligans and they made it. And especially if there's a 3-loss team. Whoa, I tell you what, when that day comes.
That'll be like the Washington
He's T-Bone,
Capitals.
he's Alex, I'm BK.
Yeah,
I'll tell you this much, you're going to watch the game.
No, I won't. No.
There'll be a 3-loss team.
I refuse the NBA play-in games. I will refuse that 3-loss.
That's a lot easier. That's a lot different.
I'm with him there. 3-loss team should not be a playoff team.
You know what's really going to
when Illinois gets in with 3 losses, that's impossible.
Well, they won't. What's really going to melt his brain is when the 3-loss team wins in the first round of the playoffs.
Oh.
That's going to break T-Bone. He's going to come on the next day and be furious.
That'll be like the 2020 baseball playoffs. It didn't matter.
Hey, it's not it's not college football, but it is the NFL. Catch Anthony Stalter and Rafe from the Riz Show Thursday night at Hot Shots. They're down in Fenton from 6:30 to 8:30. Maybe Alex will go out and say hello. That's down in his neck of the woods. Hang out with the guys. Watch Thursday night football. Broncos versus the Saints. While you're there, get signed up for Point and 101 ESPN giveaways. It's Thursday from 6:30 to 8:30. Rafe and Stalter from Hot Shots in Fenton. It's all refreshed by Bud Light. Coming up next, we'll get to the BK and Ferrario Rewind. Put a bow on this thing here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends at Classic Air Care, making people comfortable since 1926. I've been using them since 2016. They've taken care of 2 different houses, one with a really old unit and then another with an old unit. And both of those were able to last us the entire time with the house, all the way up until this one just croaked like 3 months ago. But here's the thing about Classic Air Care. We knew we were in the market for a new one when it went down, and I loved working with them on it. They had knowledgeable technicians who came out, walked us through the purchase of a new HVAC system, letting us know what you need and what's just the bells and whistles of the HVAC system that you don't necessarily need. You get honest, you get knowledgeable technicians when you work with Classic Air Care, and they're reminding people that now's the time to get a new HVAC system, because on the new year, January 1st, government regulations are kicking up the prices for the liquid that will be used for those HVAC system, going up 15 to 20% than what they are now. So now's the time to do it. They have financing options available. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. You can call them Classic Air Care, or you can do online, classicaircare.com.
Hey, catch the opening drive tomorrow from 7 to 10 o'clock with the Rawlings Experience at Westport Plaza. Rawlings is the #1 baseball brand worldwide, and they will be revealing this year's Gold Glove Award finalist at this exclusive event. The opening drive is live tomorrow morning from the Rawlings Experience in Westport Plaza for the Gold Glove Awards finalist announcement. Get more details at 101ESPN.com. They will have that for you right here on 101 ESPN tomorrow morning. If you missed anything from our show today, be sure to check out the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
A little bit of news to pass along. This comes from Pete Thamel, who covers college football for ESPN and ESPN.com. Mizzou wide receiver Luther Burden, who left the game against UMass with a shoulder issue. Pete Thamel says he's expected to return to practice this week and will play against Auburn. So if there was any question about the potential for an injury, a serious injury for Luther Burden, looks like he's going to be A-OK. He will play this weekend against Auburn. Alex, final thing for us today as we get out of here is on the St. Louis Blues. They're going to get back in action tomorrow night. Biggest takeaways from their first 3 games of the season, go 2-1-0 on the road trip. What was your biggest takeaway from them on their first 3 games.
Probably their special teams, of how great their power play looked in 2 separate games where they scored versus Vegas and when they scored versus Seattle. Their penalty kill has been really good as well. 5-on-5 is going to come now that you've got some health back. Brandon Saad returns. Sundqvist is close to returning. You're going to see a little bit more consistency with that line combination. I think they've got the makings to be a better team than what people gave them credit for. It's just going to be a matter of figuring it out and figuring it out fast. I will say the part that I'm most optimistic with, too, though, is their defense. Defensively, they found ways to shut down the opponents in 2 of the 3 games. And then, man, you're getting points from both Falk, Broberg. Pareko's got a few of them. You're getting some offense from this defense as well.
You brought up mine. It's Broberg. Broberg has been the single biggest thing that stood out to me. He looks like one of the best players on the roster already. It's looking like a huge move for them to bring him in. I will be curious to see if at any point we see him bump up to that top pair. We'll see on that. For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's been great to do a Monday show with the 3 of us in studio together. That will not be the case next Monday, but for today,
do want to get in 2025
really nice or 2026. We'll see how that all goes. We will talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.